The man was already tired of repeating many times that this was Princess Tortilla Noel Rias. It was the head of the supervisory agency named Aran Clover. The man simply does not remember something so useless. This man is the 19th emperor of the Kairos Empire, Ethan Apolius Kairos. Aaron said that this wedding is His Majesty's, so he does not understand how the princess of a neighboring state can organize the ceremony herself. This is no longer peace but war. The captain of the guards, named Lucas Seaver, noted that he thought that His Highness would prefer war. Aaron told him to shut up. Lucas thought he was kidding, like he was talking about Princess Tortilla. Her beauty is truly dazzling, and this is serious, but she wears a veil, and her face cannot be seen as. Lucas thought he was walking and didn't understand what he was talking about the aura. And also her mother named Leah Khalid, a girl known on the server for her beauty. Lucas believed that she had most likely simply captured the heart of Jade Nears. Jade Nears, like Tortilla, he's beautiful. He is both a great warrior and the greatest strategist in this world. There is no person who does not admire him, and there is no one who does not mourn his death. This man really looks like a god, and that means his daughter has come here. Aaron said that tonight is Princess Noel's first night, so he asks that they be more attentive to even the smallest gestures. Lucas noted that no matter what, she was still a married princess. Aaron informed the master that they were now deviating, and the emperor continued on his next journey alone. After this, the emperor entered the room where his lady was already waiting for him with a veil on her face. She greeted His Highness Ethan Apolius Kiros. She is the eldest daughter of Tortilla General Jade Nears and the first princess of Tortilla Noel Nears. It was a great honor for her. The emperor thought about her red hair and realized that was why she was called the Princess of Dawn. He noticed that it was very brave of her to look the emperor straight in the eyes. So he thought she didn't value her life at all. The lady said yes. And then the emperor noticed that she looked very much like him and suggested that it seemed she had something to say. Noel said that she actually had something to say since she was here to make a deal. The emperor was surprised and noted that it seemed she had a couple of extra lives. The emperor called her too arrogant. The lady said that she was sold anyway, so she lives to the fullest so that she won't regret it later. So she has the nerve to ask for a deal, and she's willing to pay well. After this, the emperor suddenly pulled out his sword and pointed it at the lady. When the lady fell and was very embarrassed, he put away his blade. Noel hoped that he would listen to her story. The emperor decided to sit next to her, and she noted that her life depended on what she said. Noel noted that she knew she was being held hostage here. Her life is in his hands, and they both know it could end today. Yet here she is anyway. Noel can only accept it, but she still wants to make her choice. And she came to surprise him. She wants to make a deal with him at the cost of her life. The emperor noted that for a deal to be made, both parties must agree, and he was confident that she could offer him something. The lady said that as long as she was the daughter of Jade Nears, the emperor decided to find out what she wanted from him. The sun god chosen by the gods, the great emperor of Kairos. Noel, for him, who is the defender of the East, offers his homeland Tortilla. The emperor was surprised and interested, so he asked what he should do for this. Noel said that to do this, he must destroy her homeland. The emperor said that the destruction of this empire was very easy for him, but not for her. Tortilla is located beyond the Tartania mountain range to the north. It would be difficult to cross the terrain, and the terrible weather would be a problem, so no one even tried to conquer the north for a long time. No matter how much supplies and food they take with them, there is no point in trying to cross this mountain range. To see the red walls of Tortilla, surrounded by forests and mountains, the lady turned to His Highness and asked if he would still claim that it was so simple. Noel was born and raised in the north, cutting her sword with her father on the battlefield. She also learned words with her mother in the forest and walked more than rode in a carriage. And she spent less time in Tortilla Castle than in its surroundings. Tortilla will be the biggest obstacle to Kairos' conquest of the north. No one can help conquer Tortilla except her, and she will tell you everything she knows about the server. So she asks His Highness to use her. She asks him to unite the world beyond this high mountain range. The emperor was tired and remarked that this was very stupid. Since she was the princess of Tortilla, she could talk to him like that. And even so, she asks for the destruction of her country. Then the people will shame her. The princess laughed and remarked that it seemed he had misunderstood her. Noel just remembers what she got from them. Nothing, and therefore she owes nothing. She asked what they did when her father died, and where they were when her mother was vomiting blood and dying. All that was left was revenge. If he wiped Tortilla off the map, if he stained these lands with blood, then she would do anything for him. Noel asked him to take her hand, and the emperor saw that she valued it very much. He grabbed her hand, so the girl thought he agreed to this deal. The emperor said that at least for today he agreed. Noel asked if she could ask why the emperor asked if it really mattered. The girl denied it, so he kissed her hand, and she thought that the name of the Sun Emperor really suited him very well. Ethan asked why she was so fickle. He was also glad to welcome her to Kairos. Noel smiled and promised to pay her full respects to His Highness. The emperor thought they were finished, so he suggested they rest now. Or she wants to say something else. The emperor asked if he needed to explain what a girl and a man could do at night. The lady said that she understood everything, so the emperor asked her to be a little more serious. In Tortilla, there are customs. Husband and wife drink wine at the end of the day. Also, children will drink with them when they grow up. Her father loved her very much and even took her with him to the battlefield so that she could pour him a drink. She said that the drink was much better, but suddenly, the emperor dragged her to his place. Noel asked if she should take off her shirt. The emperor told her to just purse her lips. After that, they had a passionate kiss. Ethan told her to relax, gentlemen. I don't understand what she should do. Noel asked him to wait, but the emperor said that since she said she understood everything, she should not have any complaints. The lady confirmed this, but that is exactly why she has them. The emperor took off his shirt and asked her to look at his muscles and say it again. The princess was shocked when she saw his body. She remarked that it was very wonderful. The emperor asked if it was supposed to come out of her mouth at that very moment. The lady noted that it was a compliment, but he was not pleased with it, and he added that one should not casually touch the emperor's body. Noel asked him to stop, but the emperor said again that he had already said that he could not be touched. Noel wanted to tell him something, and the emperor said that he was listening to her carefully. He also added that she was very thin, but she was a princess, and he couldn't believe that it was so difficult to feed her in her empire. Noel admitted that she was always treated with disdain. The emperor remembered how Aaron had said that all this time she had lived in captivity on the territory of Tortilla Castle, because General Jade Nears of Tortilla was poisoned and her mother was killed. Because of the murder of his half-brother, the king of Tortilla is very scared. Over time, the authorities came to the decision to imprison the princess in order to stop the unrest among the people, and this time, as a sign of reconciliation, he sent the princess instead of his daughter. Noel pointed out that he knew that anyway. She turned to him and said that she did not want to be his puppet and did not want to be his woman. The emperor was simply horrified, and the girl added that she did not want to become one of his concubines. It's all because she doesn't want to waste her energy and time fighting with his women. Then, from a curse that appeared on his path, she will turn into a faithful courtier who can help. The emperor was tired and amused by the fact that she said she would be a faithful courtier. Such blind love of the emperor's women always ends in a rain of blood. If this is true, then I wonder what it was like for the previous emperor of Kairos. Noel said that there is 1 Karalin, 3 Akaroi, 9 Akasis, 28 concubines. Karalin is the queen of the empire. Akasis is the one who gave birth to the prince. Akaroi? Akasis is the wife of the emperor. But only 2 precious princes were able to grow up in the imperial family. It is unclear how many princes and princesses died. His mother cried a lot because of this, and she asked how many deaths he had seen. She asked who else could understand this pain, but the emperor shouted that it was too noisy. Ethan is not going to tolerate this disrespect anymore. The lady said that she can stop it at any time. She does not want to risk her life because of her feelings, and be disappointed that it won't last forever. She won't ask for his love, so she is not a woman to him, but an assistant. So she asks to let her stand on his side to protect his whole life. Temperature noted that she would regret this decision, but the girl said that this was her destiny. This intellect is strong, but she is also quite simple. He wants to know how smart this girl is, so he said she could just do whatever she wanted. Noel asked if he was going to sleep here, because she heard that he didn't like to spend the night in the harem palace. The emperor noted that people were changing and then grabbed her hand and told her not to stare at him because it was making him uncomfortable. The lady asked if he was uncomfortable. She had simply never slept with a man before. The emperor noted that if she slept with someone, she would instantly destroy the country. Noel feels protected, after which she said goodnight to the master. She didn't want her to say that it was uncomfortable. He didn't feel any protection. The woman was simply horrified when she learned that he did not return to the main palace. The emperor's wife, named Aris, who was an Assassinatus, began to destroy everything because she was furious. They say His Majesty sleeps in the room of the new Assassinatus. Aris didn't understand why he was doing this because he didn't even look at her. The maid tried to tell her mistress not to worry. There were rumors that the new Assassinatus had been sold to the palace. The dowry was given to the emperor, so she has no money left. She is only a princess of a small country. She can become the emperor's #1 woman. Her Highness Aris is from the powerful Mulb family. The girl said that was why she was surprised. He ignored a member of the Mulb family for a woman from the north. The family of the emperor's wife made huge contributions to the foundation of the country, and many emperors came from it. In addition, Her Highness Aris loves His Majesty very much instead of next to His Majesty. Her Highness Aris should belong. The maid said he did it on a whim, and she thought she knew it. Aris ordered her to call her brother immediately, because she couldn't just let this all go. The lady promised to go and send a message to the Mulb family right away. Aris also ordered to call this woman. She wants to finally see her face, so she ordered to tell the woman that she demands to meet her. Noel was surprised that His Highness had woken up and immediately greeted him. The emperor noted that it was a very good morning, and he had not slept so well for a long time. He's really comfortable. It doesn't even look like he had trouble sleeping. Noel thought he was leaving already. The emperor asked if she really wanted him to leave. The lady said that she was wrong. I just don't know what to do next. She asked what the emperor usually did in the morning. She was very embarrassed. Ethan suggested eating first. He used a special bell to call the servants. A maid immediately entered the room, and he ordered her to set the table for them here. The maid was very surprised and asked if the emperor was sure that he wanted her to set the table here. The emperor said that he was completely confident and ordered that he not be forced to repeat himself. The maid apologized and promised to arrange everything immediately. Ethan asked the girl to tell him if she had any requests. According to the traditions of the Imperial family, a girl who spends her first night with the emperor should receive something. Usually it's jewelry, sometimes a territory or a castle, and it depends on the favor that evening. Noel realized that if that was the case, she would get nothing. The emperor was glad, because fortunately she understood this, but the lady didn't understand why he asked about it. Then Ethan said that she didn't understand something. He didn't do anything to her of his own free will. If they had spent a sleepless night, it would have been much worse. Now the lady understood everything and asked how about doing it. She just uses a lamp. The girl took the lamp and cut her hand. The emperor in horror screamed and asked what she was doing. The girl said that then no one would have any questions. The emperor ordered her not to say anything and tied her wound with a handkerchief. She went over to his side, so now she is in his hands, and no one can touch his subordinates. Everything is the same with her. She shouldn't do this again, otherwise he won't forgive her. The emperor asked her to promise him. Noel began to believe that he valued her, so she agreed. Noel apologized and noted that she looked rather sloppy, but in any case, she was very grateful and touched. The gentleman said that there was no need to thank him. She should think better about her actions. Noel promised to think about it. Ethan decided to find out what she wanted. The girl said that she did not need anything. The emperor said that if she forgot, she should know that there would be no more such chance, so he asked her to think and answer him. Noel repeated once again that she really didn't need anything. She only has a room and some jewelry, and he thinks that rumors about me have already spread. He was surprised that she didn't know that wealth is where all power lies. Apparently, she had already forgotten that she was in the palace of the empire. And then the girl said that she knew what she wanted, and she needed only one thing. Noel asked again if he could agree to everything. The gentleman said that first she had to say what it was. The lady remarked that she thought she shouldn't say this, but after thinking for a moment, she realized that His Highness was capable of it. The emperor asked in horror what it was, and also noted that he was not saying no. He just wanted to know what she wanted. Noel asked His Highness to grant her freedom. She wants to be free here in the Imperial family. The emperor thought she wanted to leave here. Noel said no way. She is his Assassinatus, temperature moved, and asked if she wanted to be free, being the Assassinatus of Emperor Kairos. He noticed that she had quite huge ambitions. She thought that this was normal, and she wanted freedom of movement, at least within the imperial family. The emperor needed to know more specifically, not so vaguely. He wanted to know where she wanted to go. Noel wanted to go to the library. The gentleman asked again, and she also said that she wanted to go to the library of the imperial family of Kairos Imperial Library Baritas. It contains books collected by previous emperors. These books can only be read by members of the imperial family or the current emperor. Even high-ranking officials cannot get in there. The emperor noted that she really does not know the word fear. The gentleman said it would be difficult to do. Noel was shocked and didn't understand if it was really too difficult for him. The gentleman agreed, and so she was happy. But she would go there alone. The girl was very surprised and asked again. The emperor told her to be very careful and not to get caught. Noel was shocked with you that he wants her to get in there secret, because it is impossible to get in there. The emperor said that at least if she was caught, he would cover for her. Noel was already asking what would happen if he didn't cover for her. In that case, she would die. He noticed that she seemed very unhappy, but the girl said that this was not so. Ethan was sure she was unhappy, but she denied it again. The emperor shut her up with a kiss, after which he asked if she would really be so surprised all the time. Noel noted that this could be the case, as she was a bit impressionable, and indeed, she is only a little dissatisfied. But God doesn't care. The emperor thought that perhaps they should try something more impressive. Sarah came into the room and asked if Mrs. Noel had slept well. The girl said that she was grateful for the care and confirmed that she was fine. The maid simply does what she has to do, and fortunately, the mistress has no complaints. Noel noted that there was only one thing she wanted to take away, the staff. She had too many servants now. Sarah noticed that her maids had already been selected. If I don't like someone, she can simply replace him. But that's not what the lady meant. Noel about how only her people will be allowed to enter her room, and she doesn't want the maids to watch her, so she ordered everyone to leave. This is her first order. The servants understood her and decided to leave. The lady also said that I need to call the maids one by one. She herself will monitor them and decide which one to choose. She hoped there would be no problem with this. Sarah had told the month that everything would be ready by morning, after which the lady thanked Sarah, who did not understand why she should be thanked since she had simply made a request. She has been serving in the palace for many years, but this is the first time she sees her. She is smart. Noel noted that she felt like Sarah wanted to tell her something. The maid apologized and said that it was indeed so. The mistress was all attention. Sarah said she didn't need to use such terms of address for services and maids. The master must behave like a master, and the servants must respect him and show everyone who she is. This is how the hierarchy works in the palace. Noel said that she is not from here. She needs someone who can help, so this is how they do it. Sarah also added that the lady was very smart, because she knew in advance that there were a lot of extra eyes here. However, they are not just watching her. They will watch her every mistake, watch her every action. Therefore, Sarah asks Mrs. not to belittle herself and not to show that she is simple. Sarah believed that this lady was the most powerful person in the harem, so she must take care of herself. Noel was grateful again, and the maid was surprised that she thanked her again. The lady also added that she should not worry, because she would speak correctly to the young maids, but she could not behave like that with those who were older than her. Sarah tried to say something, but the lady said that this was the etiquette of her country, so she asked to understand her, because she did not address her like that at all. And Noel coped with the consequences during difficult times. Sarah understood everything, so the mistress suggested going to her new servant. Lucas burst into the emperor's office and shouted that he had heard that the Lord had spent the night with the Akasis, and so he wanted to know if it was true. Rumors of this had already spread everywhere. Aaron ordered him to shut up. Lucas was shocked, because this was not typical behavior for His Majesty, and even considering that he had been training upon hearing this, he immediately rushed here. He also added that he wanted a lot of rumors that she looked like a goddess, and he wanted to know if it was true. Ethan didn't understand what was going on, and why he was so stubborn. From this, as the emperor did not react in any way, the man realized that it seemed that these were just rumors. Aaron ordered him to get out, and he sat down on the sofa, upset. Aaron asked His Majesty in horror if there were any problems with this woman. If they exist, they can help. But the emperor firmly said that there is no problem. In fact, she really is beautiful. The emperor remembered her. Her eyes are especially beautiful. She is the Princess of Dawn. Ethan noted that it was a fitting name. Lucas asked why she was spending the night with him if she didn't look like a goddess. The gentleman has never allowed anyone to do this before. This is indeed true, but all because of this, that he wanted to sleep. Aaron was surprised, because the gentleman cannot sleep for 2 days and feel great. And then suddenly he wanted to. Besides, he slept with someone he saw for the first time. He had never shared a bed with anyone before. Perhaps it really was just a sudden whim. The emperor remembered what he wanted to say. Regarding the request to the new Akasas, the man said that she wanted a good maid assigned to her. The emperor allowed Sarah to enter. Lucas had no idea where the maid was coming from. The woman greeted him and said that she was Sarah, the chief maid at the palace, and had arrived by order of His Majesty. The men were surprised, because he never worried about the lives of the people in the palace. Now he personally chooses the best maid for someone, unless it is some kind of sudden whim. 7 hours ago, the lady greeted many women and introduced herself as the Princess of Tortilla. Dila was the first to introduce herself. Although she doesn't have any special talents, she copes with all the housework perfectly. The girl was sure that she could cope with all the difficulties. The lady was pleased to hear this, and she loved cleanliness very much. Next is Anna, the culinary department. She loves to cook deliciously and is confident that no one can do it better than her. Noel also loves good food, so she told her to cook whatever she wanted. Anna was very happy and promised that she would treat Her Highness to the most delicious food. Next up is Penny. She's in charge of the financial inner palace. Her father was a businessman, and she is not very good at anything else. She can solve any financial problem. She is also excellent at managing finances. Heather, they had already seen each other on the day of the mistress's wedding. The girl was very pleased that the mistress remembered her. She is the head of the palace's clothing department, and will be responsible for ensuring that her appearance amazes everyone. The lady remarked that in that case she was counting on her, and thought that the days in the Surimnir would be pleasant. Surimnir is the palace of Noel Sierra from the army of Cyrus III. Before the mistress chooses her, she swears to protect the Akassis with her life. Noel pointed out that she shouldn't risk her life for her. The knight's hands were all calloused. Noel said that she should know the value of her life, so she suggested trying to live as long as possible. The maid reported that Akassis had finally chosen her servant. Lucas was surprised to hear that it was only 5 people, and he thought that was somehow too few. Sarah said that these 5 would be better than those 50. The emperor pointed out that she had said that the young maids were too troublesome. This is true, but their true value had not yet been determined. First, Dila Madi, the youngest daughter of the Mate family, who have served the Imperial Palace since time immemorial. Dila's 20 brothers and sisters work at the Imperial Palace. If you count cousins, that's more than 30 people. The Mate family is a veritable repository of information about the Kairos Imperial Palace. The emperor noted that they had the opportunity to collect rumors that his palaces were part of life. Indeed, that's true. Next, Anna from the culinary department is very gluttonous and boring. Aaron asked Sarah if this woman had been demoted twice. This is Jeremy the butler. Sarah said she has the best cooking skills. She is on the same level as the chefs, and His Highness chose her food again. Everyone didn't understand why she was the one who could do it, but everyone knows that Anna cooks very well. They can only imagine the irritation of their bosses. Sarah thought that if she became a personal servant, then it would be a different matter. She knows His Majesty's tastes so well, and she thinks she is very well suited for the Akassis. Aaron noted that there was another child with a familiar last name, Penny Docks. Aaron asked again if this was the same Docks as Sergeant Docks. Sarah said that it was true, and she was the eldest daughter of the Docks family, who received the title of Viscount 3 years ago. Lucas realized that this was a rich family that had risen from commoners. When His Majesty gave them a title, the aristocrats were very irritated. But it was a good idea the family had a strong influence on the economy of the empire. The emperor himself approved of this. Ethan noted that he knew about it, but he wondered why the daughter of the Docks family was a servant in the palace. Aaron believed that her father simply lacked warmth and wanted her to become the emperor's woman. Sarah said she doesn't know how her father is, but Penny is different. After all, she wants to take over her father's business. The emperor said to continue. Then the Lord noticed that His Highness really liked the new Akassis. He looks so happy. Sarah also said that Noel has a very low dowry compared to others, so the chances of financial help from her are very low. But if Penny Docks becomes his woman, she will receive a lot of support. Judging by her father, he will help her both physically and mentally. It gets more and more interesting. Lucas asked who was next. It was Heather Politante, the daughter of a raven, and her mother is very famous in high society. Heather has always kept an eye on the scores and stuff in her house, so she's very good at decorating. She will help Noel, well, Aaron thought. And there it seems that the puzzle is not complete, but he has guesses. And the last piece of the puzzle is Sierra Carlson. Lucas was in complete shock and asked again if she was talking about those Carlsons. Carlson is one of the most famous military families that had a hand in founding the empire. From it came 4 generals and many knights who won a huge number of victories on the battlefield. Not only does this family win fencing competitions, but members of this family have always passed the general's exams. However, they did not know that this family had a daughter. Nosa said that few people know, but the Carlson family is dominated by men. But Sierra is a very strong child and deserves to bear this name. However, there is a tradition that the knight himself must choose the master, and she has not recognized anyone before. She was demoted 3 times and then lost 2 years to nowhere. Lucas thought it was possible, and she chose a new Acasis. Sarah noted that this man should be aware of who her real master was. The Emperor was her master. He was the one who controlled her life, her destiny. She defended Acasis, whom she considered a worthy woman. Despite her gentleness and decency, she still decided to stand up for her. This was a manifestation of her fortitude. Sarah was skilled at reading people. She absorbed information quickly, analyzed situations, and could make accurate assessments. Her skills in this area were not accidental. Her Highness Hyona was also not one of those who thought about a harem, and Noel was no exception. She would definitely become a new target if she wanted to change something in her life. Sarah recalled how one day a woman whose death had gone unnoticed tried to prove her fortitude. Sarah warned His Majesty not to forget that she had found herself in this pool. Aris screamed, calling Noel an arrogant brat. She asked if she was going to go against her, confident that she could defeat her in any fight. Sarah was a maid in the Imperial family and maintained a neutral attitude towards all the ladies at court. She did not take sides despite pressure from all sides. No matter how hard the women tried to win her over, Sarah remained true to her position. She was never inclined to take sides, preferring to remain neutral. The Emperor noticed that this was not like Sarah's behavior. She was always careful in her actions. He wondered what could be behind her unexpected behavior. If that was indeed the case, then it seemed that Sarah had managed to win the heart of the headmaid. This was quite an achievement, especially for someone who usually remained impartial. Sarah said that she would invite Mrs. Acasis Noel. She was sure that this meeting would be important, and she did not intend to postpone it for long. The lady noticed that there was a lot of noise outside and wondered what was going on. She felt that there was tension in the air and that something important was about to happen. The maid reported that it seemed that Mrs. Acasis Aris had arrived. It was an unexpected event, since no one had warned of her visit. The noise in the corridor was clearly audible. Noel asked if that was true and was shocked that Aris had come without any notice. It was unusual for her, as she always liked to plan things in advance. The maid confirmed that Aris had indeed come, and Noel began to wonder what would happen if she refused to meet her. It could lead to a reprimand or even worse, consequences. She had heard that Lady Aris had a bad reputation in palace circles, even among the servants. People said that she was quite cruel and demanding of her subordinates. The maid couldn't understand how Aris had become such a sinister figure. In some situations, she was far more dangerous than a common street thug. At that moment, Aris entered the room, and with obvious displeasure, noted that Noel's quarters were too small. She politely commented that she had not expected to find such a setting. Aris seemed to be studying her opponent, trying to figure out who she was. She asked if Noel wanted to greet her clearly, hoping for some concessions from the new Acasis. Noel decided to test how long she could withstand this tension. She watched Aris carefully and waited with interest to see what would happen next. Determined not to give in, Aris was sure that no one in this palace could be better than her. She believed that she had to dominate this situation, forcing others to obey. Noel simply replied, "Hello." She introduced herself as politely as she could, but her words were without unnecessary emotion. She had no intention of bending to Aris's demands. Aris was angry, thinking that this woman should have bowed her head to her. She expected more respectful behavior, but was met with only calm and confidence. Noel calmly reminded him that she had already introduced herself, and now it was Aris's turn to do the same. She was not going to be the one to humiliate herself in front of a higher-born lady. Aris was simply horrified, not understanding how this could have happened. She asked again, not believing that Noel did not acknowledge her superiority. Noel calmly replied that it would be impossible for her not to accept the greeting. She could not ignore the accepted rules and respect. The maid screamed, reminding Noel that she should have been more careful with her words. Aris was from the Mulb family, one of the most influential in the Imperial court. Noel stopped her wondering how a servant could interrupt an Akassis. She thought the maid should have been more careful in her remarks. The maid quickly bowed her head and greeted Noel in submission, realizing that she had made a mistake. All that was left was to follow her mistress's instructions. Aris wondered why she had to greet someone like Noel. She couldn't understand how this woman could act so boldly towards her. Noel responded with restraint that she now knew who Aris was, and that it was her turn to introduce herself. It was her form of respect, but also a challenge. But Aris wasn't going to give in so easily. She came to Noel's chambers uninvited, which was a bold move even by palace standards. Aris continued to act arrogantly, showing off in front of Noel, whom she did not know. She considered herself superior to anyone else, which she tried to prove in this meeting. Aris's refusal to give her name only angered Noel, who responded by banishing her from her chambers, deciding that such impudence was not worthy of respect. Aris was furious, not understanding how this woman dared to treat her like that. She couldn't believe that she was just thrown out without offering an apology. The woman who was stopped was full of rage. She tried to attack Noel, but her mistress's knight intervened in time, stopping her before she could strike. Aris slapped the knight in the face and continued to shout that people like her shouldn't allow themselves to do such things. She didn't understand how she could have ended up in such a situation. Noel calmly pointed out that she was not a slave, and therefore had every right to stop her. It was her right and duty to protect her quarters and her honor. Aris screamed that she couldn't tell the difference between who could and who couldn't. She didn't understand why Noel was acting so arrogantly, not recognizing her authority. Noel, surprised, asked how she was different from Aris. After all, they were both Akassis, and status shouldn't have defined their relationship. Noel pointed out that Aris should understand that too. Despite her position and family, she shouldn't act like she was above everyone else. Now that they were both Akassis, Noel felt that Aris should show more respect. Otherwise, their relationship would not be able to continue on this level. If they were in Tortilla, Noel is sure that there would be a lot of blood on Aris's face. In that situation, she would not have allowed herself to behave so rudely. Noel hoped that Aris would be more careful in the future. She understood that with women of this type, one must be especially careful and decisive. If Aris continues to touch her people or enter her chambers without permission, the consequences will not be so simple. This will not end with just words. Aris was stunned by her actions. She couldn't understand how she dared to do such a thing. Her thoughts were racing, and she became more and more aware of her impudence, not understanding what she was doing. The maids whispered quietly to each other, noticing that Aris had suddenly gone silent. They exchanged many rumors and gossip, including that His Majesty was also showing interest in Lady Noel. The girl thought that there were too many curious eyes around. She realized that perhaps no one knew that she painted her hair red solely for this reason. It all seemed out of place. Tortilla has worse things happening than her own situation. The fever killed his cousins, and he still sits on the throne despite such cruel acts. Princess Erika Rias was always the subject of discussion. It was embarrassing to even mention how she treated her relatives. She was a terrible person, which was becoming increasingly obvious. Noel felt that compared to Erika, this woman was just dust. Noel decided to check if she liked her greeting, waiting for a reaction that could clarify a lot. Aris was displeased and asked what this strange greeting was. At that moment, a maid entered the room, bringing news that gifts from His Majesty had been delivered to the new Akassis. The maid reported that the emperor had sent her not only gifts, but also letters written by the emperor himself. Aris could not hide her anger. Her face turned red with anger. Noel bowed and expressed her gratitude as she accepted the gifts from the emperor. She said that she was deeply grateful for his favor and all the gestures he had shown her. The butler noted with admiration that Noel's demeanor radiated elegance and grandeur. She carried herself with such calm that no one was left to do anything but feel insignificant. He emphasized that her steadfastness always left others confused. She showed no fear, and her self-confidence only increased the respect that others had for her. He was sure that His Majesty had made the right choice in choosing her. The butler respectfully informed her that it was a great honor for him to meet a woman like her. He was the eldest in the inner palace and helped the emperor manage affairs. This gave him a special position, and he was proud that the emperor trusted him with such a meeting. Aris was furious and could not contain her emotions. She turned to Jeremy, asking if he could see what was happening. The man calmly replied that it was an honor for him to meet her too. Aris, unable to contain her anger, asked if the gifts were really sent by the emperor. All this irritated her, and she could not believe what was happening around her. Jeremy confirmed that the gifts and letters were indeed sent by the emperor, but Aris screamed, claiming that he was lying, because the emperor always treated all girls equally. Aris said furiously that the emperor always did this. He left immediately after finishing his business, and the gifts for the girls were always the same, including her. But something was wrong, because the gifts for this particular girl were different, and Aris couldn't believe that the emperor had actually sent such unusual things. She began to scream that her master could not do such a thing. She did not believe that such gifts were really from him. All this contradicted her ideas about how an emperor should behave. The butler, noticing her anger, asked her to calm down. He reminded her that the rules regarding gifts in the imperial family are strict, and their number is decided exclusively by the emperor. He explained that even if Aris asked why he still couldn't give her an answer, it was part of the traditions and rules that everyone in the imperial palace had to follow. Aris, still not calmed down, tried to understand why it happened this way, and not otherwise. The maid suggested that she go back because there were too many people in the room and the situation was becoming tense. Aris, holding back her rage, promised that she would never forget what happened that day. These events left a deep mark on her memory, and she intended to take it all back. In the evening, thinking about everything that had happened, Noel thought about the words of the girl who said that she would not get anything. These words left an unpleasant aftertaste in her soul, forcing her to doubt. Suddenly, the emperor appeared behind her. He asked if it was possible that he had heard wrong. Noel was taken aback, not expecting him to appear, and asked a little nervously, since when he had been barging in like this. The emperor asked her with interest if she liked his actions. Noel was a little embarrassed, but admitted that she liked it, but it was still too unexpected and sudden. The emperor agreed that perhaps it was too much, but he did not touch her that night. But the next morning, he sent her gifts. This was supposed to be a sign of attention and care for her. Noel reported that she had already received gifts, but the emperor, smiling, asked if she thought it was too much. He seemed to expect more from her confession of her feelings. Noel, feeling the tension, said that she definitely did not intend to become his woman. This statement caused the emperor a slight surprise, and he noticed that she was not yet accustomed to his closeness. The emperor added that he would never allow her to be his woman without her desire. He said this with a slight sarcasm, trying to show that everything depended on her decision and not on him. He also said that the necklace she was wearing suited her very well. Noel, with a slight smile, replied that she had chosen it herself, which was true because she liked the accessory. Before meeting him, Noel prepared for a long time, carefully choosing her outfit and accessories. It was her way of showing her confidence and preparedness, but she did not know how the emperor would react to it. The emperor, noticing her preparedness, asked if this meant that she was expecting him. This statement made Noel feel uneasy, and she quickly replied that it was not so. But the emperor, with a mysterious smile, noted that she had nowhere to run from him. This was another moment when his words seemed ironic and full of hidden meaning. After the kiss, the emperor noticed that Noel was still avoiding his gaze. She replied that it was because she was embarrassed, and he was the one who made her feel so awkward. Noel, aware of how her emotions affected her behavior, noted that this was precisely why she was interested in the emperor. He had always been something mysterious and attractive to her. Noel said that he was truly pure evil, that she felt his influence on herself. The emperor replied with a smile that he knew it very well, but still did not intend to change his behavior. She did not understand how he could speak so confidently, and asked how he even knew the language and culture of her country. The emperor only smiled mysteriously, leaving her with many questions. The emperor noted that it was his secret, and no matter what she dreamed of, he would be able to make it all come true. This was another moment when his words left uncertainty and mystery. Noel said sarcastically that he was truly the embodiment of kindness. The emperor thanked her for such words, although there was a hint of mockery in his voice. He pulled out a key, and Noel asked in surprise what it was. She assumed it was the key to the library she had wanted to visit for so long. She was shocked to learn that the emperor still remembered her request. He noted that he had promised to bring the key, but had not said that he would give it to her immediately, thus leaving room for intrigue. Noel had such a cute and genuine reaction that the emperor couldn't resist and wanted to tease her a little more. However, just as he was about to continue, his heart began to tremble. He turned to her, but he couldn't contain his feelings, declaring that it was his wedding gift. His words were full of unexpected softness and warmth, which surprised her a little. The words wedding gift sounded much better than award, because they conveyed a much deeper emotion. It made the moment a little more intimate, and Noel got the hint. Noel glanced at the key and quietly noted that with it, she would be able to leave and return to the library. She knew that this key was important and would help her avoid problems with security, but only if she didn't get caught by the guards. Otherwise, her plan would fail. She promised Ethan that she would do everything to avoid trouble and avoid prying eyes. Ethan suggested that if she did get caught, he would help her get out of the situation, but Noel confidently assured him that this would not be a problem, and she would definitely be able to avoid trouble. The emperor was interested in how confident she was in her own abilities. He thought about her confidence, and it made him appreciate her determination even more. She knew exactly where she was, and she was sure that Kairos was far from what she had thought it was. It was a new realization that strengthened her will in this situation. Noel answered confidently that she knew that everything was not as she imagined. She was not weak as he thought, and was ready to face any difficulties. From her words, it was clear that she was clearly not some fragile and defenseless woman. She was strong and ready to fight for her goal, despite all the difficulties. Ethan was probably already lost in her red eyes, but that didn't stop him from continuing to watch her, feeling more and more affection. That look was full of deep emotions. Noel laughed and said that when he came here tomorrow, she would tell him about her great feat. She smiled, anticipating how she could surprise him with her actions. The emperor was surprised by her confidence and asked how she knew that he would come tomorrow. The girl, a little embarrassed, did not immediately understand what exactly the emperor wanted to say. She turned to him and asked him, puzzled, if he was going to come tomorrow. He said no, and added that he had said he wouldn't be there tomorrow. Noel, hearing this, nodded calmly and said that she understood. She did not repeat her questions, although inside there remained a slight dissatisfaction with his answer. The emperor somewhat mockingly added that he would indeed not be in the palace tomorrow, and that he had not expected her to be so enviously waiting for him. This sounded with a touch of humor. Noel clarified that this was not the case, that she was not jealous, and that her words were honest. She did not hide anything, but Ethan kissed her, grinning, and told her that she should not worry. He said that Lord Hobosha had done something, and he was going to go there to check out what was going on. Ethan assured her that it was harmless, and that everything would be cleared up soon. Noel asked if it was dangerous, to which Ethan confidently confirmed that no, everything would be fine. He was confident in his safety and did not worry about the consequences. Ethan reminded her that she shouldn't use that key tomorrow. Noel, a little surprised, asked him why her eyes were full of questions, because she was ready to act. He explained that he would not be able to protect her tomorrow. When he was not in the palace, she had to stay safe and not leave this place. He did not know what could happen in his absence. He strictly warned her that she should not meet anyone and should not go anywhere. Regardless of the purpose, she should stay in place to avoid unexpected problems. The emperor added that he did not know when or where she might be in danger. He was ready to protect her, but at that moment he needed to focus on other matters. So he asked her again not to leave this place when he could not protect her. He said this with genuine emotion, realizing how important her safety was to him. Noel pointed out that he himself had said that he would help her if she was caught. Ethan replied with a smile that it depended on the situation and that he was always ready to change his mind. The emperor continued with a smile, claiming that this was how he was fickle. Noel, in turn, noted that he was in fact blameless in his actions, and it was precisely this innocence of his that she loved. Her words were followed by a passionate kiss, which became a confirmation of their mutual feelings and affection. Lucas noted that it looked like it wouldn't be over today. Aran added that the problem wouldn't be solved so quickly this time, and they would have to continue monitoring the situation. The flag that one of these arrogant people displayed was simply enormous. Something like a challenge, this flag attracted attention and irritated many high-ranking officials. Hobosh was the largest port city of the Kairos Empire, a vital strategic center and trade hub through which one could reach every corner of the empire. However, the Rabble family, who had recently inherited Hobosh, refused to pay the military dues, which displeased the emperor. This step was the beginning of a serious problem. Without the emperor's permission, they began to build fortresses and fly their own flag, demonstrating their independence from imperial authority. This was outright betrayal. The emperor was sure that bloody retribution would soon follow. The servants were ready to carry out his orders, and the punishment would not take long to come. The emperor said that they had 10 minutes, and during that time, they had to bring Rabble here. He was ready to punish the traitors and show who was the real master of this empire. He promised that he would make these people know who really ruled the empire. Their self-confidence would be destroyed, and they would understand who they were dealing with. The man couldn't understand who dared to do such a thing, but soon realized that the emperor himself was standing in front of him. His eyes widened in surprise, and he realized that the consequences would be serious. He respectfully declared that it was a great honor for him to meet His Majesty. It was a strange-sounding phrase on his lips, but it could not hide the fear inside. Ethan told him that the consequences for betrayal would be the most severe, and that would be death. The man tried to justify himself, saying that he only wanted to make the city stronger. He tried to explain that he only wanted to improve his place and make it richer. This was sincere, but the emperor could not accept his excuses. The man claimed that Hobosh had always been a small port and that their family had taken control of it. It was a natural process, he said. But now everything had changed, and Hobosh had become an important part of the empire. What the Rabbles didn't realize was that this was part of a bigger picture and strategy. He couldn't understand how this could be a betrayal, because Hobosh had always belonged to their family. It was land that should have been part of their heritage. The emperor interrupted his explanation and ordered him to remain silent. After that, blood was shed, and the man realized that his words did not matter at that moment. Ethan asked who really protected Hobosh, who built the fortresses, and gave the title. It was the result of protecting the Kairos Empire, and they paid for it. It was under the emperor's protection that they existed. And so Ethan shouted that they would pay for their betrayal, not with money, but with their lives. It was a decisive sentence. After this scene, they decided to return to the palace since everything was decided. The emperor did not want to waste any more time talking to those who did not understand their guilt. The maid, looking at what was happening, told the lady that it was true. It was the first time she had seen the emperor like this, so determined and cold in his cruelty. Noel asked Dila to stop her stories, but she continued claiming that before leaving, he looked at her for a long time, while she was sleeping, and even smiled. The emperor, intervening in the conversation, gave the order not to wake Noel. The maid informed her mistress that such details should not worry her, and that it was better to focus on more important things. Noel, clearly annoyed, ordered everyone to stop this talk and insisted on finding a way out of the situation. She was not going to waste any more time on empty discussions and was going to act. She could not stay in this garden any longer. The maid remarked that this was their first meeting, and it was quite difficult for her. However, it was clear that they were all looking forward to this moment with impatience. The girl suggested that next time they should definitely take a map with them to avoid such complications. It seemed like a reasonable solution, especially after they realized how much they had to cover. It's moments like these that Noel realizes that she is not her father, Jade Nears. The knight believed that her father could have organized everything because he was always precise and never lost in unfamiliar territory. Her father, Jade Nears, memorized every path and route, which she heard was extremely useful during the war. Knowing his way around the area would have allowed him to avoid many dangers. When a person is familiar with the territory, it is much easier for him to understand where the enemy might go. This knowledge gave him not only a strategic advantage, but also confidence in his own strength. Sir Jade was truly an outstanding man, the pride of his people and soldiers. His achievements were due to his hard work, and his daughter was proud to be called his daughter. The lady admitted that they had clearly taken the wrong path, and this became obvious when they began to look for a way out. She understood that this step might not be the best one. The lady said that they were very pleased to see a new Akassis in their circle. Noel felt that if she did not leave this place now, something bigger would soon begin, and they would not stop. Noel realized that if she didn't leave now, they might start to act too aggressively. She didn't want to be the cause of unnecessary disturbance that could ruin everything they had planned. Aris hoped that Lady wasn't just going to leave. She couldn't believe that it would end so quickly because the meeting with Noel was too important for everyone present. Noel replied that she didn't want to disturb everyone who was there to enjoy their time together. She believed that her presence shouldn't be a nuisance to the others. Aris assured that the meeting would be boring without her, and that her departure would not make the situation better. She tried to persuade the lady to stay, promising that everyone would be much more interested with her participation. Aris wondered what they should do now, since there was only one regular chair left. She noticed that the situation was getting tense, and it was necessary to quickly decide who would sit. The seating system was very strangely organized, and now they had to figure out who would sit in the remaining seat. This became another reason for discussion among those present. In fact, it all seemed rather silly. Lady Akassis had just arrived, and it seemed she already didn't like the place. This added to the tension since her expectations were not being met. Perhaps Noel felt uncomfortable because her status as a princess abandoned by her country raised unnecessary questions. This barbarian tribe from the north, if she really was from there, would be familiar with the area. If she was indeed from the northern territories, it would explain her knowledge of the area. Her understanding of the world around her gave her a confidence that others sometimes lacked. Aris ordered everyone to stop discussing, as the new Akassis might be upset. She also admitted that it was her mistake not to inform the guests about the exact date of the next meeting. Everyone thought that it couldn't be Aris's fault, and that it was only her shortcoming that was the cause of all the misunderstandings. She blamed herself for not being able to organize everything properly. Noel realized that these children loved to play with others, and they were so interested in her that they had gone all the way to the serum near. This did not go unnoticed, and she decided to play with them for a while. She decided that she would play with them a little in moderation to see how seriously they took her. This allowed her to find out what their real goals were and what interested them. Luckily, they now knew of her existence. It was an important step, but she knew it was too late to react. Everything that needed to be done had already been done. Although time had passed, Noel received an invitation from Lady Akassis Aris. It was a momentous occasion that did not go unnoticed, and she prepared to accept it. It seemed she had not forgotten about the lady, despite all the events. The woman noticed that even the chairs were not positioned correctly, and this added some hostility to the atmosphere. Noel noticed that everything was strangely arranged, because her place was taken, which meant that it should have been empty. This puzzled her a little, because everything seemed unpredictable. Aris couldn't understand how they dared to get up before her. It violated all the principles, and she felt irritated. She couldn't understand how this could happen at her meeting. The ladies replied that they did not wish to disturb the order, and sat down immediately as soon as they heard the order. Noel did not object, realizing that it had to be done without further ado. Noel reassured everyone that everything was fine, and that there was no need to worry about her. She sat down on an empty chair, assuring them that she was not going to cause any difficulties for the others. She settled into the empty seat and said she would stay there. Noel couldn't afford to worry about trivialities when the main thing was to remain calm under the circumstances. Aris noticed that the lady still seemed very calm. This surprised her, because she expected the tension to show, but Noel seemed to be completely collected. Aris was a little worried that there might not be enough seats, but it was really a minor worry. Everything would fall into place after everyone was seated anyway. Noel said that this place was prepared by Lady Akasis Aris, and she could not feel uncomfortable. Everything was arranged with care for her presence, and she did not intend to complain. She had often been to such meetings, and it no longer seemed unusual to her. Noel was used to such an atmosphere, and this time she felt quite calm and confident. Aris thought Noel was being too arrogant. She couldn't understand why she had such a smirk on her face, as if everything that was happening didn't matter to her. As soon as they met, she immediately began to despise this suspicious expression. Aris thought that the girl clearly did not understand her situation and did not know how to behave in such situations. Aris expressed her displeasure, asking if the maids had mouths in the ceremony, or if they didn't feel the need to express their thoughts. It was a sarcastic remark directed at Noel. Noel knew immediately what Aris meant. It was related to her concerns about her status, and Noel knew she had to be careful in her responses to avoid causing unnecessary displeasure. Aris only said this because she was worried about Lady Noel. She thought that Akasis was a position that was a harem, and perhaps Noel should have acted differently. She asked what kind of example Noel was setting for her maids if she continued to dress like that. It was a comment about her appearance that Aris felt was unacceptable. Noel replied that they were all His Majesty's women, but not all were the same. There were laws about the division of ranks, and everyone should know their place in this hierarchy. In any case, Miss must be an example for everyone. Aris, with smug confidence, declared that she was that very example as befits her position. Her opinion on who should be on the pedestal was immutable. She added, with obvious disdain, that she should simply give Noel a new outfit. It was her suggestion, implying that the lady should look more befitting her status if she did not want to cause disappointment. If things were left as they were without any changes, there would be problems. She warned Noel was not about to reject such offers, knowing that perhaps she was dealing with good intentions, but in their expression. Noel said that she would accept the kindness of the Akasis, although in fact she had recently been given many outfits. She admitted that she had already received many clothes, and now she did not know how to wear them properly, since there were too many of them. The maids suggested to Noel that she should wear this dress, and although she was not sure that it was the best choice, she trusted their opinion. They thought that it would be appropriate for her position. Noel learned that the dress had been a gift from a certain person, and although she thought it was perfectly acceptable as she tried it on, she realized how unsuitable it was for her. With each passing moment, she became more and more convinced that the dress needed to be altered. She thought that she would definitely tell this person about her feelings and ask for changes to be made to its design. Her thoughts were immediately met with objections. Everyone around her began to argue restlessly and try to dissuade her from such actions, claiming that they did not mean anything bad. People started telling her that she shouldn't have sent the message to this person at all. They thought that her worries were unfounded and that the dress wasn't as bad as she thought. They reminded her that the materials were really gorgeous, and even if the design itself wasn't quite perfect, it shouldn't be a problem. Noel was shocked by this approach, her confusion growing. Noel did not like such scenes, and therefore preferred not to interfere in matters related to the Emperor's women. She was uncomfortable in such situations and did not want to create unnecessary resonance. On the contrary, she felt like she was in the middle of this chaos and understood that she could not act as everyone expected. It was too difficult for her, and her own opinion only became more confused. She understood their concern and gratitude, but she also realized that they were much more knowledgeable about Imperial etiquette than she was. This made her feel uneasy, although she decided to follow their advice. Noel added that she would need to take some lessons from Akasis Aris, as she was still not used to the strict and complex etiquette that was in effect at the Emperor's court. She herself did not understand what she was talking about, but she still claimed that it was true. Her words sounded a little uncertain since she herself was at a loss about her actions. According to the etiquette of the Kairos Empire, people of lower ranks must lower their gaze when meeting those of higher rank, Noel decided to check if there were any exceptions to this rule. Aris confidently stated that there were no exceptions to this strict rule, and that everyone must follow the established norms regardless of each person's situation or position. Noel couldn't understand how you could look higher than the highest rank when he was already in front of you. This puzzled her greatly, and she thought that something urgently needed to be done about it. She was surprised when Aris went on to explain that this situation was not limited to the Akasis. If they did not follow the rules, it would be an insult to everyone below them. Aris pointed out that it was important for all subjects to show how much higher in status they were, and how important it was to follow these rules so as not to undermine the power and authority of the emperor. Noel wondered why people around her continued to stare her straight in the face, despite all the rules, and she felt bad that her position was not respected in any way. Aris didn't know how to respond to this question because she was confused herself. She realized that they still hadn't lowered their eyes, which could be perceived as a breach of etiquette. Noel felt the situation was getting out of control, and in a show of submission, she immediately dropped to her knees, declaring that she had made a mistake that could have cost her her life. Her words caused everyone around her to kneel, which attracted even more attention. Noel decided that perhaps she should introduce herself again to clear the air. She rose from her knees and announced that she was the new Akasis, the first princess of Tortilla Noel Rias. It was important that everyone understood her position and respected her status. Immediately after her statement, the maids began to greet her as Akasis, addressing her with respect and expressing their respect for her role in the imperial court. The emperor, who arrived unannounced, was a little taken aback, as he had no time to prepare for such a visit, but he remained calm and focused on the affairs at hand. If he found anything unacceptable, he could report it, but overall, he wanted everyone to remain calm. The emperor said there was no need to worry about trifles. The emperor added that he was leaving tomorrow anyway, and this was just a short break. Lucas walked behind, but he couldn't help but notice that the atmosphere around him was tense. Lucas turned to Aaron and said that he could no longer hear anything that was happening because his thoughts were completely absorbed in the palace, and he had no time for conversation. The emperor heard this and replied that it was complete nonsense, because they were too noisy and did not allow one to concentrate. Aaron again reminded Lucas that he should watch his words. The emperor said they were too noisy and so ordered them to go through their own channels, instructing them not to disturb him with unnecessary conversations or continue to distract him. The next morning, the emperor was going to return to the palace. Everything that had happened had left him a little exhausted, but he still decided to move on and not stop there. He wanted to know who these people were and what they could do to help him relax and get rid of his fatigue. But Cain said that was exactly what they were there for. The emperor announced that he was fed up with this and ordered everyone to leave the premises. He did not want to waste any more time on strangers who were only creating an unnecessary burden. He felt them creating an unpleasant atmosphere around him, full of bad spirits, although she in herself was beautiful and did not need magic to bewitch. He remembered how she had greeted him, and the memory warmed his heart. He felt her softness and tenderness penetrate his soul, making his heart beat faster. But at the same time, he realized that she was a cunning and wily woman, hiding many other qualities that he might yet have to discover. He felt his face suddenly turn red. Thoughts of her took over him, and his own emotions began to roll in, bringing with them unexpected feelings. Aris greeted him with deep respect, saying that it was a great honor for her to see him as the Emperor of the Sun. This was a manifestation of her affection and recognition of his power. Aris thought that he was probably tired from the journey, and upon hearing of his arrival, she decided to meet him immediately to show her respect and concern for his condition. She had not expected him to arrive so soon. It had come as a surprise to her, and she did not know how best to behave at such a moment, since the visit had been extremely sudden. Aris knew that His Majesty was only supposed to be in the palace on designated days. The Emperor's appearance here without prior notice raised many questions in her mind. At that moment, Aris thought that if she could only win the heart of His Majesty, her life would change. But she was determined to achieve this. She took a step forward and took his hand, asking permission to escort him to his quarters. This was her way of showing the care and attention she wanted to give him. She had a wonderful tea that she assured him would improve his health, but the emperor declined her offer, asking her to step aside. He was in the mood for other things. Aris didn't quite understand what was going on and why the emperor was refusing her offers. He said he was heading to Ceremnir and didn't have time to rest. The emperor continued his affairs despite the suggestions of Aris, who felt that all this was just a pathetic attempt to hold him back. The maids decided to end their conversation, realizing that if they continued, Lady Aris could become very upset. Aris, in turn, swore that she would definitely answer for this humiliation. Lady Aris informed the knight that she had just heard that His Majesty had gone to the harem palace. This was an important event that could not go unnoticed by her. Noel noted that the emperor had already told her that he would return sooner than planned. She noted that they needed to be prepared for any outcome because anything could happen. The maid hoped that the emperor would not return too soon, as she was sure that Lady Aris would not leave things as they were if they did not meet him in time. This added to the tension. The lady said that they would soon know what would happen. Remembering the emperor's words, she added that she should not leave this place until he could protect her. This made her feel vulnerable. The emperor had always said that she should not leave the palace without his permission. The lady only obeyed his orders, but she understood that this could be a great shame for Lady Aris. Noel hoped it wouldn't be a problem, because she didn't think it was that big of a deal in the current situation. The main thing was to not attract too much attention. The maid was surprised to see that the entire palace had literally turned upside down due to these events. They were only discussing Lady Aris and her bad reputation, which made her situation even more difficult. The rumors of Lady Aris's bad reputation were now only growing stronger, and most likely her image had become even worse. All the maids in the palace spoke only of her actions and their consequences. The lady wondered why there was such a fuss about Lady Aris. She asked the maids to tell her directly what was happening so that she could understand the situation and what to do next. One of the maids explained that Lady Aris was known for her cruelty, often slapping her servants when they were in a bad mood. It had become a habit that everyone had gotten used to, despite her status. The lady began to understand why everyone around her took her behavior so calmly. When Lady Aris lost her temper, she became dangerous, and no one dared to stop her. When Lady Aris lost control, she would throw anything she could get her hands on. This fit of rage often destroyed everything around her, further damaging her reputation. Noel couldn't believe what she was being told. The maid knew it was hard to accept, but it was true. Lady Aris wasn't afraid to show her rage. Lady Aris once threw a teapot towards a servant who burned his thigh. This incident became a symbol of her unpredictability and cruelty, even in moments of irritation. The lady couldn't understand why no one tried to stop Lady Aris. The maid explained that all this was happening because she was the daughter of the Molb family, and her behavior was perceived differently. Lady Aris was the daughter of the Molb family, which played an important role in the founding of the empire. This gave her a special position, and no one dared to criticize her or try to change her behavior. According to the ancient rules of the Kairos imperial family, all the emperor's women had equal status, from handmaids to the daughters of dukes. The title of Akasis was created to make it easier to treat them. Due to differences in social status, the title Akasis was introduced, which allowed women of the imperial family to be treated in a special way. This creates special respect regardless of their rank. Even if women are not queens, they are treated with the respect and dignity that befits their position in the imperial family. This status gives them certain privileges. The maid told her that, as she already knew, His Majesty had only 2 Akasis. One of them was Lady Aris. The other was Lady Suah of the Celtic Dukes. Noel asked why she had never met Lady Suah. The maid explained that Suah never left her chambers, and her servants from the Celtic family knew little about what was going on. Noel was surprised that Lady Suah was hiding in her chambers and not coming out. This created an additional mystery around her, and her behavior attracted attention. The maid added that there was a secret that everyone knew. Many called Lady Suah abandoned in the harem because she hardly appeared in public. It was said that Lady Suah was locked in a harem and rarely went out. This fact gave rise to many rumors about her situation, which remained a mystery to most. The Kairos imperial family was known for having many women in their lineage, but fortunately, a worthy prince was born who could correct this situation. Many of these women remained locked in the palace throughout their lives, unknown to anyone. Their fates remained unknown except to their closest relatives. The situation changed when Emperor Ethan Apollonius ascended to the throne. He began to reform the government, but women in the imperial family continued to be restricted in their access to the palace. After the end of the border war, the nobility began to actively offer their daughters to the emperor, hoping for their rise in status and an improvement in their position in the imperial family. The Mulb and Celtic families were among the most active in this process. During the war, the Celtic family's position had worsened, and they were trying to find new ways to improve their reputation. The suah family part of the Celtic family became the object of scorn among the elite. Rumors circulated that her daughter Suah had been caught in indecent acts, which tainted her reputation. Rumors about Lady Suah, spread by the Mulb family, claimed that she could become an Akassis, but she herself suspected that these rumors were part of an intrigue against her. Lady Suah believed that the rumors about her were spread by the Mulb family in order to destroy her reputation. She suspected that this was one of the steps to discredit her. This remained only her assumption, but she understood that the emperor could not simply leave her if it were not necessary for political reasons. Noel asked why Suah thought she had been abandoned. The maid, although she did not know the details, said that Suah had made a mistake on her first day with the emperor. On the first day of her stay with the emperor, Suah made a serious mistake, and from then on, the emperor no longer appeared in her chambers. This greatly affected her position. The girl was surprised by such behavior on the part of the emperor. The maids confirmed her surprise, explaining that the emperor had indeed acted in a way that no one expected. Noel didn't know how to react to what was happening. However, soon the knight announced that the emperor himself had arrived, and all attention turned to his appearance. Noel kept wondering why the emperor had done this to Suah. This question haunted her, and she could not find a reasonable explanation. Emperor Ethan looked at the girl and noticed that he seemed unwelcome. He felt that something was wrong and decided to look into the situation. Ethan noticed that Suah was clearly thinking about something important other than his presence. This made him wonder about her feelings and the reasons for her behavior. He also noted that she had a sweet smell. Noel quickly replied that this was not the case and assured him that she had been waiting for his return the whole time. The emperor admitted that he missed the sweet smell. Because of this, Noel felt her face flush slightly and said that it was just her perception and she didn't mean anything special. But that's not all. Noel was shocked and said that she was not at all. Ethan calmly noted that if she did not like the current situation, then he was ready to meet her halfway and just close his eyes. These words sounded casual, but their subtext was deep. After these words, they kissed again. The lady felt her heart beat faster, and her cheeks blushed. She tried to hide her embarrassment, but it was not easy. Fortunately, she had not yet forgotten how to breathe properly, despite the wave of emotions. However, her embarrassment was reflected on the emperor, who looked a little confused. Noel asked a question, wanting to know how well the job had been done. The emperor, after considering her words, replied that the result was probably worth rating as 50-50. She knew that everything was taking longer than expected. Her patience was wearing thin, as she had assumed that Ethan would return to her immediately after the business was completed. Ethan smiled and said that he heard her waiting for him. Noel responded by emphasizing that without his presence, she would not be able to use the key she possessed. The emperor frowned slightly and noticed that she was complaining again, but he still wondered why she didn't come out to meet him as soon as he returned. Noel calmly explained that she was simply waiting for him in her chambers, as he had clearly ordered her not to leave until he returned. She complied. She added with a smile that a flower could not seek a bee. Ethan, with a bit of admiration, assumed that she had already managed to gain authority in the harem. Noel was surprised that he knew about it, since it was all an accident. However, she agreed that he was right. She had done quite well. Admitting to her active nature, Noel said that next time she would be a bee looking for a flower. Her words sounded determined. She added with a slight smile that this time His Majesty would have to become a flower, and she would definitely find him wherever he was, which caused Ethan a slight embarrassment. Ethan gently replied that she didn't need to take on such a responsibility. He assured her that he could find her himself if she would just stay put. Noel frowned and admitted that she didn't like the role of a flower at all. It was against her character, but she knew she couldn't go against his will. Ethan thought that such fortitude and determination was to be expected from the daughter of Jade Nears. Her character was unique, completely different from other women in the Empire. However, she emphasized that she could not disobey his orders. Ethan smiled at her stubbornness, because her contradictions only made her more interesting. Noel couldn't resist, and declared that if that was the case, then he would be the flower. And this would be that rare case when the flower itself would look for its bee. Meanwhile, rumors began to circulate in the palace about a new Akasis from Tortilla, who had spent 2 days with the emperor. Many wondered who she was. These rumors reached Aris, who was furious when she heard about what was happening. She couldn't understand why none of her loved ones had come to support her yet. When she finally met her brother, she couldn't contain her emotions. He, noticing her upset state, asked how she was doing, but Aris interrupted him. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she threw herself into her brother's arms, complaining that he had ignored her for too long. She could not understand why he visited her so rarely. She admitted that she missed him terribly, and her voice was filled with pain and longing. Her brother, surprised by her tears, was at first confused, but then patiently began to console her. The girl accused him of being the reason she was so worried, because they hadn't seen each other for a long time. The man tried to explain that his work took up all of her time. He reminded that as deputy finance minister, he is forced to travel frequently, but he still noted that the Akasis from the north probably irritates her a lot. Aris admitted that she had no idea what to do with this girl. She was a stranger, and her sudden appearance in the palace made her feel vulnerable. Her brother, smiling, advised her not to worry, and instead of being angry, try to show her superiority. After all, Aris is the main woman in the Empire. He confidently said that if she couldn't handle it, who could? She just needed to remind everyone who she was and show her rival her place. These words inspired Aris. She was touched by her brother's support and thanked him sincerely. Despite her doubts, she regained her confidence. Her eyes filled with tears of gratitude again. Her brother, seeing this, reassured her, reminding her that her position as the future empress guaranteed her an advantage. He firmly promised that he would personally take care of the new Akasis. He was confident that he could handle this task because Aris had always been his first priority. Aris thanked him sincerely for his support, reminding him that he was the only one she could rely on. She felt protected again. The conversation continued on a lighter note, and Aris began to talk about various little things that had happened recently. Her brother couldn't help but make a little mockery. He found it a little funny that despite her beauty and status, Aris had failed to win the emperor's heart. However, he understood her difficult situation. He decided that as a brother, he had to protect her. But to do that, he first had to meet this northern Akasis himself to understand who he was dealing with. Aris, hearing this, agreed, but warned that Veritas was a place where even the most powerful and influential people could not enter. This worried her. However, the lady remained confident in her decision. Noel smiled calmly and confirmed that she intended to get in there despite all the difficulties. She tried to explain that she had already received permission for this from the emperor. However, the maid was surprised to learn that the emperor had actually allowed it. The lady specified that the conversation with His Majesty had not been so easy, but she had achieved her goal. The maid, still doubtful, asked about the details. Noel hesitated, then replied that she was confident of success, although she knew the chances were 50-50. She had the key, but she knew a lot would be required of her. The maid, still hesitant, tried to explain that this was not enough for success. However, the mistress, looking at them, firmly said that she needed their help. The maid, unable to object, realized that her mistress had no choice but to rely on her help. Noel, feeling determined, emphasized that this was the last chance for success. The girls exchanged glances, doubting the plan, but eventually agreed to help. The lady was confident that if she got the necessary support, she would be able to penetrate Veritas. The lady looked confused. Not understanding how exactly to help in this situation, Sierra assumed that the lady already had a plan. She suggested that the lady discuss everything with them and only then make a decision because every step is important. The lady nodded in agreement. Her voice was firm as she asked everyone to pay attention. She understood that everything depended on her actions and decided to explain her plan. She began by mentioning Baritas, a place only the emperor has access to, where rumors say there is a secret door leading directly to his chambers. The lady specified that the door could only be opened with a special key belonging to the emperor. Without it, it was impossible to get in, which made her plan extremely risky. She calmly stated that she was going to use the key to return the same way. Her confidence was inspiring, despite the obvious dangers. Everyone knew it was a risk, but no one dared to dissuade her. The maid anxiously reminded them that Baritas was guarded, and it was impossible to get through unnoticed. The mistress only nodded affirmatively, confirming that she was aware of this. However, the lady assured them that she knew a loophole and that would give them a chance. She explained that despite the abundance of guards, there was one safe route that they used. Her confidence gave everyone hope, although no one knew how difficult it would be. 2 days later, the emperor, immersed in his work, was puzzled by the number of documents lying before him. He felt irritated by the endless paper that literally filled his desk. Lucas noticed that the amount of documents had increased significantly over the last 3 days. He warned that they needed to be dealt with quickly, otherwise there would be even more of them, and the situation would get out of control. Aaron suggested taking things slow if things didn't require immediate action. He thought that some work could be left for later, but his comments were met with disapproval. Lucas insisted that the report was very important, and the emperor had to deal with it immediately. Leaving things as they were was unacceptable because the consequences could be serious. He added that the ministers, instead of doing their job, were doing nothing but arguing. The emperor sharply rebuked Lucas, ordering him to be quiet, which upset him. Aaron, watching Lucas's reaction, reminded him that he had warned him that the conversation might not end in his favor. He watched the tension between them with a slight grin. Aaron noticed that there were too many rumors in the palace about the new Acacies. He discussed with curiosity that recent events and the emperor's visits had only fueled the interest of those around him. After returning from Surimnir, the rumors spread even more. This was not surprising because everyone wanted to know the details, especially when it came to the emperor's personal life. People were not surprised or focused on it because everyone knew that the emperor was currently going through a period of passionate marriage. However, some found a reason for discussion in these rumors. Aaron continued to tease the emperor, playfully hinting that he was attracted to the Acacies by feelings he expected the emperor to start cursing, but this only increased the merriment of their conversation. Lucas calmly noted that he hadn't said anything wrong. However, Aaron tried to steer the conversation in another direction, to smooth things over and avoid further conflicts. With a slight smile, Aaron advised the emperor to go outside for some fresh air. He confidently added that the lady was most likely waiting for him. The emperor was puzzled, but seemed intrigued. The emperor expressed surprise, assuming that his mistress was busy reading. He wondered if she was really waiting for him, as such situations made him wonder about her actions. When Aaron asked again what the emperor meant, he admitted that he was curious to see how the lady would get out of this again. He felt that her behavior was hiding something more. Noel once again assured herself and the others that her plan was sound and that they would not be caught. Her confidence calmed those around her a little, although the tension still remained. The maid approached Noel and informed her that Duke Celtic had sent her a letter. This news brought a slight smile to the Acacies. Letters from the Duke were always important to her and brought her a sense of security. Noel thanked the maid for the timely message. She knew that Duke suah Celtic was a trusted ally, and his words could be especially valuable at this moment. The maid sheepishly asked the Acacies not to call her nanny anymore, but to address her simply by her first name. She felt uncomfortable with such a formal address. Noel smiled and explained that the habit of calling her nanny had been around for a long time. It was hard to unlearn, but she was truly grateful for the maid's loyalty and understanding. Suah, remembering her past at the Duke's estate, noticed how her life had changed. She noticed that the maid looked worn out, as if the hardships of the recent past had left a deep mark on hers. The maid spoke wistfully of how cheerful and happy Noel had been before she had entered the harem. Now her eyes seemed filled with a sadness that seemed to never leave her. Suddenly, another maid appeared in the room, animatedly reporting that she had heard a lot of interesting news. Her story was full of gossip about the latest events in the palace. She enthusiastically told about the new Acaces, who, as it turned out, managed to make a lot of noise. It was said that even the emperor himself visited her palace twice, which became a subject of discussion. The maid also added that Aris had been under a lot of criticism in recent days. Everyone wondered how she could allow this to happen, given her position and influence in the harem. However, opinions were divided. Some believed that Aris deserved her reproaches for her arrogance, while others saw this as an opportunity to punish her for her habit of looking down on others. The maid reminded him to be careful with his expressions. Then she expressed curiosity, asking what kind of person this new Acasis was. She was clearly interested in the mysterious person. In response, the other girl said that she did not know her closely, but she seemed to be able to surprise she looked mysterious and attracted the attention of those around her. However, the interest did not develop into obsession. The maid decided that she would not think much about the new Acasis, since they had no common business. Her own life was filled with worries, and other people's affairs were left aside. Anxiety filled the heart of one of the maids, who feared that their plan might fail. She could not even imagine what would happen if they were caught, and asked her mistress to be careful. Noel, for her part, didn't understand how they could be exposed. She thought the costume Heather had created looked perfect. It hid her true identity and emphasized her elegance. Despite the lady's confidence, the maid reminded her that she was not allowed to visit the Imperial chambers. She was worried about Noel, but did not want to say it out loud once again. Noel confidently declared that from now on, the maid could trust her completely. Her words sounded firm and convincing, as if the mistress knew how to protect them both. The maid told Noel that her cousin Dean Mate served in the Imperial Guard. She introduced him as a reliable and loyal man ready to help when needed. Noel, hearing this coldly, noted that she did not wish to meet him in person. She mentioned that, if necessary, even soporific perfume could be used, but later added that she was joking. The servant explained that she had spoken of this before, but the lady had apparently not heard. She assured her once again that she could be relied upon in such matters. Noel smiled slightly after hearing the maid's explanation. It was still hard for her to imagine that her cousin being part of the Imperial Guard could somehow help in her plans. However, the maid sincerely believed that her brother was a person who could be trusted. She hoped that his participation would be useful, even if it took time to agree. Noel, looking thoughtfully at the maid, said that she believed her words, but still advised to be extremely careful, because even a small mistake could lead to undesirable consequences. Dila, without losing confidence, once again emphasized that everything was under control. She assured the mistress that her plan was reliable and that she could rely on her experience. The maid was determined and confident of success. Her brother knew this place very well, every corner, every path. Now, if Noel wanted to go somewhere, he would easily lead her there confidently, showing her the way. Noel, noticing the tension on his face, asked him carefully if he was okay. His answer was short and honest. He didn't think so at all. She tried to calm him down, reminding him that they had the keys and the debt given by His Majesty. With this, they would definitely be able to pass, because the key opens any door. He just sighed heavily and noted that he would simply have to say that it wasn't him who opened the door if questions suddenly arose. Noelle was stunned when she found herself in the library. The tall shelves shining with ancient secrets made her freeze in admiration. She now saw the place where the true treasures of the Empire were kept. All the historical records covering the past, present, and even the future. The history of the Empire written down from ancient times. From the first day of its foundation to the reign of the current emperor. She couldn't believe her eyes. But her disappointment grew when it turned out that her goal was not here. She realized that she did not know where else to look for it. Suddenly, Noelle's gaze fell on the records of Tortilla. This was her home country. However, why was it so dirty? She supposed that this place was visited after all. Inspired by her determination, she remembered the deal she had made with the emperor. Her thoughts returned once again to that fateful agreement. The emperor, a descendant of the sun. God promised to restore Kairos to its former glory. His words conveyed confidence in a future golden age. But Noel knew that the true purpose of the marriage was far from a peaceful agreement. The union served as a cover for wicked plans. The emperor always wanted one thing: the fall of Tortilla. His intentions were obvious to those who could read between the lines. Noel understood that conquering the northern territories was a long-standing dream of Kairos. It had been in his interests since time immemorial. Historical records confirmed that the feud between Kairos and Tortilla had lasted for centuries. Its roots went deep into the past. The only one who could temporarily stop this conflict was her father, Jade Nears. His name was written in golden letters in history. However, Jade's death was an opportunity for Kairos and the Emperor Noel suspected intended to take advantage of it. She didn't come here just like that. Her goal was revenge for her father. She couldn't forget his words and the ease with which he agreed to their deal. Even his actions, his deeds, including that night in her chambers, were saturated with his inconstancy. She no longer trusted him. Noel didn't expect anything special from him. She knew his promises were empty and tried not to entertain false hopes. She firmly reminded herself that she would not be his woman. She had spoken the words herself, and now they sounded in her head like a mantra. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by footsteps. It was Aaron and Lucas walking towards her. Lucas noticed that the place seemed to be imbued with magic. The man wondered why previous generations had written so many books. Aran joked that if he continued to complain, magic would simply disappear. It was a special place closed to outsiders. Lucas was indignant when he was called a mere passerby, reminded that he was a general of the empire. Euseniel tried to hide, but suddenly she felt someone's hand touch her face. Her heart sank, but she tried to identify who it was. Her thoughts raced until she realized it could be the Emperor. His voice confirmed her guess. He said he had not expected her to come. His gaze softened as he called her fearless. His words filled with admiration, but he seemed to be hiding something more behind them. He noted that her appearance today was particularly impressive. He was clearly enjoying the moment, smiling his enigmatic smile. Noel felt her earlier resolve begin to weaken. She was surprised that he called her by name for the first time, and it touched her. The Emperor, looking straight into her eyes, asked her not to avoid him. There was confidence in his voice. He would not let her go. His words seemed tempting to her, but she fought with herself. Everything became more complicated when he kissed her tenderly, upsetting her inner balance. She remembered how they almost got caught and shared it. But Ethan brushed it off, assuring that almost was nothing to be afraid of. The Emperor calmly assured that even if someone approached, Lucas would quickly deal with the situation, as always reliably guarding them. Noel assumed that the gentleman had given orders specifically that they should not be disturbed. He confirmed with a slight grin that this was indeed the case. He looked at her curiously, noting that she was keeping her distance. He jokingly noted that he was not going to eat her trying to relax her. She didn't immediately understand his joke. Then he asked her to come closer, assuring her that nothing bad would happen if she sat next to him. The Emperor spread his cloak on the floor, inviting her to sit down. Her confusion made him wonder, why was this so difficult for her? Noel finally decided to sit down on the offered cloak. It was strange, but she felt that the Emperor was trying to make her comfortable. She felt uneasy about the distance between them and asked him to move closer. It seemed strange to her to be sitting alone with him so far away. The Emperor reminded her that it was she who had tried to keep her distance from him. His voice was slightly mocking, but not without a hint of seriousness. Surprised by her reaction, he added that she herself had previously told him not to eat her, and now it seemed to have turned into a joke. Then he gently pulled her close and asked her why she wanted to go to this place so much. His words sounded sincere and almost caring. She explained that there were 2 reasons. She was drawn by curiosity because this place hid a lot of truth about the world, and she loved studying such documents. But what interested her most was the possibility of finding records that would help her learn more about her own homeland and her family. The Emperor assumed she was looking for secret documents about Kairos, but she corrected him with a smile. She was interested in records about their empire. He was puzzled by why the Princess of Tortilla was seeking information about her country in Kairos. Her behavior seemed mysterious to him. Noel explained that she could not find these records on her person, as they concerned her father, General Jade Nears, about whom she was told almost nothing. She added that her uncle, the current emperor of Tortilla, always hated her father and tried to erase his name from history. After all, an illegitimate child like her father could never lay claim to the throne. This rule had existed since the time of the first emperor, Tortilla. Despite this, Jade was the acknowledged heir, but his outstanding successes caused envy and fear in George Nears, who always sought to control him. Jade possessed great strength and was invincible in battle. Every time he entered the battlefield, he brought victory and glory to his country. He was called a hero who saved the empire in its hour of need. The people extolled his name and thanked him for the peace and tranquility he provided. People called him the god of war. They believed that he would forever preserve peace and prosperity in their empire. Jade considered himself lucky. Despite the tough battles, he always emerged victorious. It seemed to him that fate was on his side, but his brother George saw him as a threat. He grew up in Jade's shadow and perhaps dreamed of becoming an emperor too, although he carefully hid it. George pretended not to care in public, but in his heart envy was brewing. This became a warning to Jade of the danger to come. If George had wanted, he could have destroyed Jade because he was only half royal. This hidden prejudice always haunted him. When George realized that his envy of his brother was growing into a real threat, he began to act cautiously. Soon Jade, tired of the pressure, decided to leave the capital. Jade believed that living on the border would be safer for his family. He was confident that he could protect them from any threats being away from the palace intrigues. At the border, his life improved. His family began to adapt, and his daughter began to please him with her successes. It seemed that the difficulties were left behind. But their peaceful life was shattered when their location was revealed, giving their enemies a perfect opportunity to eliminate Jade. One fateful day, he was poisoned. The poison was added to the wine he was drinking. The murder was vilely planned, and Jade had no chance to escape. His death was the final part of George's plan, driven by his low self-esteem and a desire to eliminate his talented brother. Noel felt she had to know the truth about who her father had encountered at the border. She longed to understand the nature of this struggle. She wanted to know how great her father was, and conversely, how low those who stood against him could fall. This knowledge became her goal. No one in Tortilla dared to tell her about it. The truth about her father and his life was shrouded in silence. The emperor listened to her story and thought about it. He could not imagine that the situation was so difficult. Noel was determined. Their conversation was accompanied by an unexpected closeness. They hugged, although both understood that these moments were only temporary consolation. Noel couldn't understand why every gesture he made her misinterpret his feelings. It all confused her. However, she decided not to give in to emotions. Her main goal remained the destruction of Tortilla, the homeland that betrayed her father. At this time, Lucas was deep in his thoughts. Aaron, noticing this, asked what this new nonsense was occupying his mind. Lucas, with a slight chuckle, replied that he was simply puzzled by His Majesty's gaze. His interest in this was more curiosity than anything important. Aaron didn't understand what Lucas was talking about. He shrugged and said that it was probably too complicated to understand. Soon, the meeting of all participants turned out to be unexpectedly fast. Aaron, looking at those around, advised Lucas not to delay further business. Lucas muttered in displeasure that he had his own reasons for delaying. Aaron just waved his hand, demanding to speed up. Time really did fly by, equipment issues were sorted out, and soon everyone was ready for the next stage. Lucas decided to change the subject and asked if Aaron had calmed down. Then they moved on to discussing the situation on the northern border. Lucas assured that their expectations would be confirmed. Ivan himself was at the border, and with his help, the situation remained under control. At this time, the emperor received a message. A new letter had been delivered to him. This was already the third message in a short time. The emperor, having read it, noticed that Blin was warning not to rush, regardless of what was happening. However, this did not seem convincing to him. The emperor knew that if he disobeyed the order, it would be considered treason, and he would immediately face the death sentence. But one thing gave him confidence. His younger brother was still on his side. The emperor hoped that this time would be no exception. However, he was determined to act. Even if it was safer to stay here, he was ready to go. This statement shocked those around him. One of them thought that if he had known in advance how joyful the meeting would be, he would not have wasted time. Until now, if only he knew that meeting her was so easy. Her world seems so close to him, and at the same time so far away. This is an appeal to Noel. Aaron thought that Tortilla was currently extremely weak. Back when Jade Nears was the country's protector, the situation was completely different, and their army was much stronger. Lucas agreed with this statement and asked what they were going to do in this situation. He could not understand what steps needed to be taken to change the situation. After the death of Jade Nears, Tortilla lost a third of its former territory, and the morale of their soldiers weakened significantly. The situation became critical, and they were now on the verge of disintegration. This opened up a unique opportunity for their empire. At that moment, the emperor himself entered the room, ready to discuss further actions aimed at expanding Kairos's power. Jade Nears was once the protector of Tortilla, guarding its lands, including the vast and unexplored territories to the north. However, now that he is dead, all protection has collapsed. Tortilla was slowly falling apart and would soon become a barren wasteland where a mighty nation had once been. The Kairos Empire could now take advantage of this. This was a great chance for Kairos to seize the northern lands, which were now in a vulnerable position, and which might soon find themselves defenseless against the empire. Noel noted that it was possible that they were talking about territory in the central city, Tavaros, although located to the north, was much further from Tortilla, which created additional complications. The emperor replied that it did not matter. Now Noel reminded him that there was more to the north than Tortilla, and their country was not the only one that could pose a threat to Kairos. Tavaros is also an old and powerful country that has maintained its independence for many years. If a war breaks out, they will definitely not stand aside and may intervene in the conflict. Ethan wondered what Tavaros was and how it could pose a threat to the empire. He was not entirely sure of the possible consequences of a clash with this state. Tortilla and Tavaros were once sister kingdoms, and their kings were even brothers. However, time changed the relations between the countries, and they often fought for control of the northern lands. Over time, each of the two kingdoms began to seek dominance in the north, which inevitably led to conflicts. They often fought among themselves, each unwilling to give in. The emperor believed that Tortilla had been the winner in these conflicts for the last 100 years, but now that it had weakened, the situation could change, and everything would depend on further actions. Ethan was surprised by the emperor's words and asked again what he meant by Tortilla's victories in the last 100 years. This moment was unexpected for him and required clarification. Noel confirmed that, like Tortilla, Tavaros also experienced many ups and downs, and each of these events could affect its further development and relationships with other countries. The most significant event in the history of Tavaros was the accession to the throne of a new king who began to expand the territory of his country by force, which strengthened its position. This new king of Tavaros used his power to expand the borders of his country, and this ensured Tavaros the status of a country that had never been invaded in its long history. Ethan was amazed that Tavaros was able to maintain its independence and not be attacked. A large mountain range stretching from Tartini to Nasibe surrounds this country. Ethan noted that Tavaros had several similarities with Tortilla, which could also play a role in the event of a conflict between the two nations. He saw many parallels in this. Noel agreed with his remark and added that if the emperor wanted to take Tavaros, he would have to pass through the Nasib Mountains, and it was important to ensure the survival of the soldiers on that difficult journey. One of the plans is to build bases in the countries around Tavaros, which would give soldiers the opportunity to prepare for a possible invasion of Tavaros. But this is a plan that does not seem honest. Such a plan, though possible, would not give them a fair victory. The emperor knew that he would not be considered great if he acted in such a way, for it was too cunning and mean. It would have been equally possible to capture Tortilla, but to do so, it would have been necessary to overcome two main obstacles: the Tartani Mountains and Tortilla itself, which would have created problems for any invader. Crossing the Tartan is a serious problem, as the mountainous terrain significantly reduces the combat effectiveness of soldiers, and this must be taken into account when planning military operations in this region. Once the troops cross the mountains, the red walls of Tortilla will open up before them, and this will be a serious blow to the morale of the soldiers because they will see powerful enemy defenses. Ethan agreed that these points were logical and would be wise to take them into account when planning a territorial takeover. Noel noted that if the emperor used a different plan, then there would be no one left in the north who could resist his conquests, and he would be able to confidently seize these lands. The emperor finally decided to find out what this new plan that Noel had proposed was. He was interested in the details and wanted to hear specifics that would help him make decisions. If the emperor crosses the mountains into Tartania, his first enemy will be Tortilla, and in that case, he will need to prepare for serious resistance from the defenders of Tortilla. The plan proposed by Noel was to first take over the less powerful countries located near Tortilla, which would allow Kairos to strengthen his position before a possible attack on Tortilla. The Kairos Empire is known for its strength, and if they can get through these countries and maintain their strength, they can likely defeat Tortilla without significant loss of troops and resources. The emperor thought about this proposal, realizing that if he followed this plan, his dream, the long-awaited conquest of the north, could become a reality. Noel was surprised that her plan had such a strong impact on the emperor, and could not believe that her ideas would actually help in achieving his goals. Ethan asked her not to be modest and admit that her help had indeed made a significant impact. He was confident that her plan would be successful and that it could change the course of the entire campaign. Ethan decided it was time to stop talking about this topic and suggested that Noel take a break. At that moment, 3 men appeared from around the corner. The men exchanged glances, and one of them remarked that Aaron must acknowledge the importance of the proposed plan. Lucas, a little shocked, added that he did not expect such proposals from Noel. Everything that was happening seemed unexpected and difficult to perceive in the current situation. The emperor, noticing their reaction, told Lucas to simply observe what was happening. He knew that these discussions were important, but he did not want anyone to interfere with the decision he was about to make. He noted that Noel really knew the North, its history, and features better than anyone else. Her knowledge proved invaluable in developing further strategy. Lucas couldn't help but agree with that statement, especially given her deep knowledge of Tartan and other countries they forgot to mention, such as Taveros, which they would also have to face. Lucas wondered why their assistants had remained silent until now, because he was sure they must have been surprised. He had expected the reaction to be more active and obvious. Aaron explained that this was not a question to be rushed. Noel knew the North from the inside, and so she certainly knew more than they did, which gave her a unique advantage in this matter. However, he also noted that the plan, although well thought out, is still dangerous. There is a risk that everything may not go according to plan, and they will have to face unpredictable consequences. Lucas told Aaron to watch his words because he might think Lady was a spy. Noel was a loyal ally, and such suspicions could be dangerous for their relationship. Lucas noted that this was simply his opinion, and Akasis was His Majesty's woman. Aaron didn't quite understand what was going on, and decided to ask if anyone could guarantee that the woman next to the emperor wasn't a spy. He wasn't sure of her intentions. He stressed the importance of caution, reminding that one should not be overly trusting in such situations. One should pay attention to every step to avoid unexpected consequences. Lucas did not think the situation was related to espionage, but the third man agreed with Aaronim, believing that one could not be too sure. Attention had to be paid to every nuance. However, they all acknowledged that the emperor had chosen this woman himself, and that was the important point. They had a duty to support his decision regardless of their doubts. They followed the emperor's decision with complete confidence. His Majesty's decisions were always correct, and everyone was obliged to believe in them despite their inner doubts. Aaron was still worried and said that although the emperor's decision seemed right, they still had to be careful because not everything was always as simple as it seemed at first glance. This behavior of His Majesty seemed unusual to him, and Aaron continued to feel wary. Something was wrong with what was happening, and this thought did not give him peace. Noel wiped the paper with her pen, crossing out what she had just heard, and said that it was all wrong. Everything that was happening was not as she had originally thought. She told the emperor to get rid of all the lies that were going on around him. It was all lies, and she needed to put an end to all the manipulation and misunderstandings. She mentioned that the western part of Tartani was home to the Kinko, and that here were the Bethgooks. But that wasn't quite true either. All of those statements were wrong, and she felt like something didn't add up. The emperor ended the conversation, declaring that it was enough for today, but Noel didn't understand why it ended there. She continued to wonder what the hidden meanings were behind his words. Ethan knew she wanted to help and told her she needed to focus. He remembered her words about being willing to support him in taking the north, but she shouldn't be so careless now. Noel was a little confused. She had forgotten something important during these few days, and now she was at a loss. She could not understand what exactly she had missed in what was happening around her. He said that if she didn't remember, that was actually kind of sweet, but Noel couldn't figure out what he meant. She kept thinking about her actions and what she might have forgotten. Noel tried to stop the emperor, saying that she just wanted to be his servant, not his woman. She had no other intentions, and that was the most important thing to her. Ethan knew this, and so he tried to act serious and reserved. He did not allow himself to show too much emotion, realizing the importance of their relationship and their role in the political game. So the Mulb family, it was decided, would take on the responsibility of building a canal in the Nike area. It was an important task and would require a lot of effort to complete. The head of the Mulb family, Pierre Mulb, led the project. Although their family contributed relatively little to it for them, it was a significant contribution to the national cause. Aris offered her help in this project, stating that they could do whatever was needed. The emperor promised that he would never forget their loyalty and help in such an important matter. This offer from the Mulb family was not something that could be refused. The construction of a canal in the Nike area required a lot of resources, and only such a family could handle the task. The only family capable of supporting a national project of such magnitude could be the Mulb family. They had acquired a status capable of significantly influencing the political situation in the empire. But this decision was not so simple. By receiving such a project, the Mulb family could significantly increase its influence, which would not please many, including the emperor. The Mulb family had ambitions. If they were to gain control of the national project, they would try to find a way to seize power in Kairos. And in the end, Aris could become queen. The emperor knew he had to be stopped, and he was confident he could find a way to stop the Mulb family from expanding their influence. This was an important part of his strategic plan. Ethan was very surprised when he met Noel. His gaze was filled with curiosity, because she seemed to him a mysterious and unexpected figure in these political games. Ethan asked her how she, as an Akassis, could greet the emperor. He was interested in her behavior and expected some sign of respect or affection from her. Noel thought he would just pass by, but suddenly he called out to her, and now she had to answer. It was unexpected, and she felt a little embarrassed. Noel had no intention of eavesdropping on their conversations, but she began to realize that they were discussing a national project. This was no casual discussion, and her curiosity grew. Akassis Aris also took part in the conversation, and if this was indeed the case, then Noel began to understand that the emperor was trying to achieve something more than it seemed at first glance. He did it on purpose. He wanted them to see her and understand her importance. Noel felt like her role in this conversation was just beginning. Noel was glad to meet him, but she couldn't figure out what to do now. The emperor asked her where she was going, and she decided to be frank. Noel informed him that she was returning to her quarters. Since he was already expected, she decided that she would go straight there. She saw no point in delaying it. Ethan turned to her, noting that this meeting was destined to happen. He suggested that they at least greet each other, as it would be polite and proper. The girl understood his words, but still did not understand what she should do next. She felt insecure standing in front of him and did not know what step should be next. Noel turned to the man standing next to Akassis Aris and assumed it was Duke Mulb. She wanted to know more about him so she could understand how he could best handle this situation. After this, the girl introduced herself and said that she was the first princess of Tortilla. She greeted him politely, realizing the importance of this meeting for their future relationship. She was pleased to meet him. However, deep down, she knew that this was the emperor's order. He wanted her to deal with Pierre Mulb, and she could not ignore it. Noel also wanted him to bow his head to her, acknowledging his lowly position. This was important to her to emphasize her respect for the emperor. For Noel, this was not easy. She wanted Pierre Molb to bow to her in the presence of the emperor. She was determined to make him acknowledge his place in this political game. She was sure that this was necessary to maintain her own respect and status. This action was not only to establish her in the eyes of the emperor, but also to show everyone her determination. Noel knew this was a test for Pierre Molb, and she wanted to see how he would handle the challenge. His reaction was important to her, to understand his true intentions and character. The Duke was furious at the woman's appearance. Her presence disrupted his plans and called his influence into question. However, he perceived it as a test of His Majesty's strength and will. His Majesty remained focused. The Duke understood that the Emperor was not prone to losing his emotions, and the time for decisive action had not yet come. Keeping an outwardly calm face, the Duke kissed Noel's hand. He said coolly that he was pleased to meet her, although his irritation was still seething inside. Noel smiled and said that they would meet more often in the future. She said it with confidence, as if she knew in advance how things would turn out. She turned to His Highness, reminding him that it was time for him to go. However, he calmly informed her that he was not going to accompany them, causing her confusion. His Highness explained. He had an important mission to carry out in Surimnir. After saying goodbye, he wished them luck, leaving them alone with their thoughts. The Emperor also said goodbye to the Duke, emphasizing that their paths were now diverging. His words sounded like the end of an important chapter and the beginning of a new one. When Noel and the Duke were alone, she decided to ask the question that had been tormenting her for a long time. How long was he going to pursue her, because it seemed he had already gotten what he wanted? His Majesty unexpectedly agreed with her words, admitting that his actions might have been too cruel. This frankness surprised her a little. Noel replied that she wanted to leave, but she always found herself in the center of events. Her fate seemed to be tied to these intrigues. The Emperor looked at her carefully, conveying a message to her. He did not want her to take his actions the wrong way. This was his way of protecting her. The Empress, having learned of his words, thought that the Emperor simply wanted to spite the Duke. She perceived this act as another game in their eternal struggle. The Emperor, noticing her reaction, calmly confirmed her guess, but then suddenly pulled Noel closer, as if demonstrating his power. He reminded her that despite the customs of Kairos, her origins still mattered. She was a princess, and that should not be forgotten. The Emperor knew that she understood the Duke's influence. However, he noted that the harem was growing every day, and with it, the intrigues were growing. Noel remained proud and confident. Any other woman would have bowed her head before His Majesty long ago, but she carried herself with a dignity that attracted him. This was the kind of empress he needed. Deep down, he wondered, could Noel really take this place? He asked her directly, does she want power privileges and everything that her position gives? This question sounded more like a test. Noel firmly replied that she was not interested. Then the Emperor asked, did she really not care if someone else became his partner? To this, Noel replied that she was only concerned about one thing, that this partner would not be Akasis Aris. Her voice was firm and uncompromising. The Emperor agreed with her position. Aris was indeed not suited for this role, but he continued to insist, asking if she wanted to be by his side. He described the life she could have, the place of Empress power, comfort, and shared rule. Didn't she want that? Noel regretfully reported that her answer remained the same. Her principles and aspirations did not allow her to accept such conditions. The Emperor realized that it was useless to argue. He said that he would leave her first, and left maintaining an outward calm, but his irritation was noticeable. Noel knew her answer had hurt him. She could see how it had hurt his pride. But she knew that honesty was the only right thing to do. The Duke, watching this scene, was indignant. How could this woman in such a position dare to behave so arrogantly? He reproached his daughter for her inaction. In his opinion, the concubines should have been suppressed immediately, not allowed to go beyond the limits of what was permitted. Aris tried to argue with her father, reminding him that reckless actions could lead to disaster. However, the Duke remained adamant. The Duke's son assured that there was nothing to worry about. Akasis, Noel had no support, and in the end, it was Aris who would become Empress as planned. The Duke sternly warned his son not to act recklessly because the Emperor must remain unharmed. He demanded prudence from him. The son promised to heed his father's instructions. Meanwhile, Aris met Cain and was surprised that he had appeared here at such an unusual time. Cain apologized with a smile for his sudden appearance. He explained that he had been helping his father and had been delayed, but was glad to have met her by chance. His words sounded as if he was genuinely happy to meet her. However, Aris felt annoyed. She was not in the mood to listen to his compliments. Her cold response made everyone around her wonder how their relationship would work out. No one knew where it would lead, but the tension was growing. Aris replied that their meeting was just a coincidence. She made it clear that there was no need to look for anything more in this than what was actually there. At the same time, many recalled that she was expelled from her barbarian kingdom. The emperor was kind to her, but changing her fate was not easy. Destiny is cruel. Those born to fly always fly, and those who crawl will remain on the ground. This is a lesson Aris learned from childhood. Cain reminded her that she must remember her place. He made it clear that violating boundaries could lead to dire consequences for her. Noel coldly pushed him away, telling him that he didn't know his place. She reminded him that she was an Akassis, and he was only the son of a peasant woman. Her voice was firm as she added that His Majesty was not known for his patience. She warned that those who forget their place often pay for it with their lives. Cain was furious. He didn't understand how she dared to talk like that to him, the heir to one of the most powerful families in the country. His anger was so strong that he raised his hand to Noel, intending to teach her a lesson for such insolent behavior and her contempt for him. But at the last moment, someone stopped him. The man's gaze was stern as he asked how Cain dared to touch His Majesty's Akassis. Cain turned around and saw a man in military uniform. Cain winced as he heard the man call him an idiot. It wasn't until he turned around that he realized who it was. General Lucas Severus stood before him, and the serious expression on his face didn't bode well. The general immediately ordered Cain to stand down, warning that otherwise there could be unpleasant consequences. Cain felt angry, his pride hurt by such harshness. Cain clenched his fists and gave Lucas a hurt look, promising that this meeting would not be a thing of the past. "We'll see each other again," he said as he walked away, still thinking about his hurt. Noel watched the scene unfold, certain that General Lucas himself stood before her. She felt grateful for his intervention, knowing that he had prevented any potential trouble. Lucas, hearing the words of gratitude, only shrugged his shoulders. He noted that he was doing his duty and did not deserve gratitude. However, he added that he knew Cain's reputation, a man who does not watch his actions. The general noted that if Noel encountered such behavior again, she should report it to him. "I can teach that boy a lesson," he added firmly. Lucas made a disparaging comment, saying that Cain didn't look like an emperor at all, but rather like a dog trying to bark but unable to do anything. Suddenly, Lucas remembered that he had not introduced himself. He gave his name Lucas Savor and added that it was an honor to meet Lady Akassis. His voice was reserved but respectful. Noel returned his gesture by introducing herself. She emphasized that she was glad to meet such a famous person as the general of the empire. Her words sounded sincere. The general smiled, confirming that they would most likely see each other more often. He added that he serves as His Majesty's blade, which is always close by and always in demand. Noel was surprised by this expression. She remembered that she had asked the emperor about Lucas earlier. He had described the general as a loyal servant, a blade that would never betray its owner. The emperor said that Lucas was a man who could be completely trusted. That is why such an important position was given to him. His loyalty and devotion were beyond doubt. Noel mused that if her father had had a subordinate like Lucas, things might have turned out differently. Her family had never had such reliable people. She understood that the emperor was counting on the general and asked Lucas to do everything possible to continue to protect His Majesty. Her voice was filled with respect. Lucas, hearing Noel's words, decided to respond with the same sincerity. He vowed to be faithful to her as well. However, the emperor began to wonder about her intentions. He became curious about why she was acting so strangely and what exactly was driving her to do such things. He was bothered by her categoricalness. She herself said that she did not want to be his woman, and this confused him. Perhaps he was too hasty in his conclusions. Previously, Ethan considered Noel a person who did not know how to behave in society. As a princess of another country, she dared to enter the imperial palace and yet remained unwavering. However, despite her coldness, he increasingly remembered her red eyes, which fascinated him. The longer he watched her, the more she became desirable to him. He realized that her distance was making him lose control of himself. Her words about refusing to be with him only fueled his desire to get to know her better. Noel, in turn, thought about the Emperor, considering him a fool. A week had already passed, and he had not even tried to find her, although he left such loud words. During this time, she realized that it was impossible to leave the Imperial Palace without the Emperor's permission. If Ethan did not come for her, she would remain locked here. The Emperor's words that he would find her himself seemed like an empty cliché to her. Noel understood that life in the palace required patience and a certain amount of effort from her. She thought about her dream of becoming an empress. Although the path to this was not easy, she was ready to cope with all the challenges. To achieve her goal, Noel knew she had to tread carefully. First of all, she decided that she had to find out more about the Emperor's feelings for her. Her thoughts were interrupted by an encounter with a strange woman. The maid informed her that it was Lady Suah, who looked quite elegant. Noel noted that she had been looking for her, but had not expected them to meet so casually. She introduced herself, and Lady Suah reciprocated. Noel suggested that they have tea together. She noticed that Suah's chambers were nearby, and suggested that they visit there to enjoy a conversation over a cup of tea. Sui was a little surprised by the offer, but agreed. She explained that she had recently received a special tea that could pleasantly surprise them. As they began to talk, Noel noted that the tea had a delicate aroma. Suah added with a smile that this is a family recipe that has been kept in their family for many years. As the conversation continued, Suah revealed that she had brought with her several favorite items from her home to make her feel comfortable in her new palace surroundings. Noel listened to her with interest, sharing her impressions of the palace. She noticed that the atmosphere here was completely different, but she liked the freshness of the air and the light breeze. During the conversation, the girls noticed the bonsai in Suah's chambers. Noel noted that all the trees here look especially picturesque, despite the lack of flowers. Suah explained that she prefers non-flowering plants to avoid attracting bees. This simple solution helped maintain the tranquility of her chambers. Noel agreed with a smile that bees were indeed attracted to flowers. She remembered her earlier joke about being a bee looking for a flower. Suah added that her life was like that of a flower, which made Noel think about the words she had said to the Emperor earlier. The Emperor turned to his butler and said that the room was too empty. He waited for an answer, but when he did not receive one, he turned again to his servant with a persistent remark. The Emperor felt very tired and, deciding to rest a little, decided to close his eyes. But a moment later, he suddenly opened them, as if something had frightened or alarmed him. Suddenly grabbing the knife, he made a sharp movement and threw it, not expecting to see anyone nearby. His actions were quick and decisive, as if he sensed something. The gentleman, seeing what was happening, asked who it was, and then realized that in front of him stood the Akasis, who said with a smile that it was a surprise for him. The Emperor was truly surprised to see her. She, humbly noting, said that she almost died, trying to get through all the obstacles to get here. The Emperor could not understand how she had ended up in his room. She replied that she had come in search of a flower that was connected to an important quest for her, as strange as it may sound. The Emperor laughed, realizing that this was truly a wonderful flower, and jokingly said that he could not help but appreciate her incredible personality and unusual beauty. She was truly beautiful. After that, both decided to go for a walk, enjoying the moment that gave them rest and a little freedom from their duties. The Emperor asked how she ended up in his office, not expecting such a strange and unpredictable visit, which added even more intrigue to their conversation. The lady showed him the key and said with a smile that it was all thanks to him. The Emperor was surprised, but even at that moment, he could not help but appreciate her resourcefulness. He admitted that he had indeed helped her, assuming that she had come through the library. Noel confirmed this, saying that the butler had shown her the way himself. Now the Emperor understood everything. Jeremy wanted to give him some rest. He noted that she was not only an amazing flower, but also brave despite her circumstances. He asked her to sit on his lap, which made the girl feel embarrassed. The emperor, noticing her embarrassment, asked her to wait a little before doing so. He just wanted to sit in silence for a while because he had missed her presence for so long and couldn't resist enjoying her scent. The girl, feeling awkward, decided to apologize for ruining his mood with her appearance, although she didn't think that everything would turn out this way. Despite her apology, her words did not change what had been decided during the week, and she accepted the conclusions they had both reached. His gaze, like red eyes, will not waver or give in to anything, even if he gave all his gold to make her look at him. Noel wanted to say something, but they just kissed, as if nothing else existed in this world except their meetings and this moment. The emperor pulled away and said that everything was fine, and the kisses became even better, much deeper than before, as if time had stopped. The girl noted that this was possible thanks to her incredibly skilled mentor. The emperor, in turn, said that this made him jealous. She said that he was so extraordinary that she could not keep up with him, and now she had to make every effort to live up to her mentor's expectations. She added that there was only one way out. She needed time to find her way and come to it, no matter how it sounds. The emperor could not understand how she could obtain permission when she had met Akasis Suah by chance. She explained that Suah was of the Celtic family and was treated with respect by the empire. Akasis Suah was the only daughter of her family who was rumored to be the daughter of her family until she became an Akasis and took charge of Molby. However, when the emperor came to her to spend the night with her, she did something she should not have done. This event left a mark on their relationship, influencing their future encounters. Since then, the emperor no longer visited her, but he was sure that if Noel tried, she had every chance of a successful future, even without connections and patrons. The lady believed that she should not stop seeing Suah, despite everything that had happened. It would be a wise decision, because an alliance with her could open up many opportunities. The emperor, hearing her proposal, asked again what would happen if he said no. Noel replied that it would upset her, but she could not change anything if it was the order of His Majesty. He said she could do whatever she wanted. Noel, after thinking, said that she thought Lady was beautiful, and if she had to choose, she would choose Suah over Aris. Aris, although gorgeous, seemed too refined and strong, while Suah was much more innocent. The emperor could not believe that she was praising another woman in his presence. The emperor said that he would give his opinion to her. Noel felt very embarrassed, not knowing how to react to his words, and tried to look away. She noted that she had asked him not to make such statements in public places because she felt awkward. She said that they needed to cover up for a while to avoid unnecessary conversations. The emperor replied that there was no need to cover it up, since he knew that it still embarrassed her greatly, and nothing could be done about it. Noel enjoyed her time with Suah. She learned many new things about life in Kairos, including stories about the upcoming hunting competitions that would be held soon. The hunting competition was a big deal, and rumors said it was coming soon. It was on everyone's lips, and Noel listened with interest to the details of the event. Previously, she often rode a horse to meet guests, which was her tradition. She knew how to handle horses and was always happy to meet them. The gentleman suggested that they go to the competition together, not thinking that it would be hard for her. He wanted to support her, but she refused, thinking that he might not like it. Noel replied that she thought he wouldn't like her participation, and that it was enough for her to get back on a horse after such a long break. She said her homeland is known for horse riding, where people tame and ride wild horses, which was part of her cultural tradition and skills. The emperor said that he knew about it very well. She even said that her first horse was small and cute, like Noel herself. This horse grew up with her. Its name was Momo. Noel surprised him by telling him that she had chosen the horse herself at the horse market, where she had gone with her father, to choose a suitable horse for her first riding lessons. The emperor was surprised that the horse was a gift from her father, but unfortunately, her uncle killed the horse, which upset her very much because it was so important to her. The emperor told her to get up because they had to go somewhere. The girl did not understand where they were going and what made him suddenly show such interest. The Lord said that as soon as they arrived, she would understand everything. They came to the stables, where the emperor said that she could choose a horse for herself, and it would be a gift from him. The girl was absolutely delighted and began to examine the horses, trying to choose the one that would suit her best. The emperor noted that he could not lie when choosing the best gift. When she approached one horse, it immediately made several jumps. The emperor became frightened and shouted to her to be careful with this horse, because it could be dangerous. However, the horse calmed down immediately when Noel approached it. It calmly accepted her presence, and the situation calmed down. Noel was confident in her abilities and was not afraid. Noel said that the horse was incredibly good, and that there was no doubt that it would become famous. She was sure that this horse could become her faithful companion in the future. The girl said that she chose this particular horse. The emperor was stunned by her decision, because no one had been able to tame this horse before. The horse that no human could tame gave in to Noel when she simply walked up to it and began to interact with it calmly. It seemed incredible. The emperor said that the horse's name was Leah, which means red earth. He offered Noel a pet, and she happily accepted the gesture. Noel thanked him with a shy smile for such a generous gift. She felt special to receive such a unique horse from the emperor. Already on the day of the hunting competition, Lucas noticed that this year all the participants were well prepared. The atmosphere was tense because everyone was expecting a spectacular spectacle. At the competition, they saw Mrs. Noel sitting on a horse. Everyone noticed that she looked confident and beautiful, unlike the other participants who seemed less prepared. Lucas was very surprised that the horse the lady was riding was Leah. This was the same horse that even he could not tame, and now she obeyed Noel. He was stunned. It was impossible for Lucas to understand how Noel could tame such a wild horse. Many had tried and failed. It was truly an unusual case. The gentleman said that all this happened because she was the princess of Tortilla. However, Ilya, although he seemed cruel, was much more ferocious than the wildest horse. The emperor proposed a hunting contest, and everyone began to prepare for the race. The tension was building, and everyone was determined to win, including Noel, who seemed like a worthy competitor. Full speed ahead! The emperor was ready for a good competition, and his entire team was also ready for victory. Everyone was expecting a spectacle that would surprise and delight. In the tent, Aris Cain considered the situation thoughtfully. He believed that he needed to stop Ms. Noel from advancing any further before she could gain a strong position in the competition. The sister asked him again what he was talking about, not understanding his intentions. She reminded him that His Highness was also participating in the competition and could influence the outcome. The boy was sure that he wouldn't hurt anyone if he acted decisively. He was ready to fulfill his role and was even ready to do everything to prevent Noel from going further. The girl trusted only her brother and promised to cover for him if necessary. She insisted that he make sure that Madame Noel no longer appeared in the palace. The boy reassured her, saying that there was no need to worry. He promised to convey the orders to the knight as soon as the signal for action was given, and everything should go without delay. The prince was astonished to learn that his brother had come hunting so early. It was unexpected, but he knew that everything had to happen this way. The younger brother didn't understand why the market was almost empty. He assumed that most people had come to see the woman who was rumored. The boy was surprised and asked again what woman they were talking about. He heard that they were talking about the red-haired Acasis, who was quite famous among the inhabitants of Kairos. It was a woman originally from Tortilla. Red hair was a rarity among the inhabitants of Kairos, and such people always attracted attention. There were rumors that she was the emperor's favorite, which even the servants knew. Everyone was talking about it, and this only increased the interest in her personality. The younger brother was surprised to learn that the emperor, and therefore his brother, had a favorite. This changed many things in the eyes of those around him. The prince was shocked. He knew that the emperor's daughter was known for her bad character, and her behavior was never admired. But this situation was completely different. This time, however, it was not the emperor's daughter. The first princess of Tortilla had arrived, the only daughter of Jade Nears, who they had not previously known about. The man was amazed when the servant confirmed that instead of the emperor's daughter, it was indeed the first princess of Tortilla who had arrived, which was completely unexpected. The servant reported that the first princess of Tortilla had arrived instead of the emperor's daughter. This was an important event that could influence all subsequent events in the empire. Sierra told the lady that the Imperial knight had brought a letter from the emperor himself. This letter must have been important, and contained important instructions. The servant read out the letter. It stated that the emperor wished to convey his attention and care to Madame Noel, which emphasized her special position at court. Aris noticed that the emperor seemed to miss his Akasis, and this was evident from his letter. The servant in turn drew conclusions from the knight's epaulette. The servant noticed that it was a real Imperial knight, and Mrs. Noel decided to go with him. Everything happened so suddenly and quickly, but the knight shouted that the maid should know her place. Noel asked to wait as she was going to return soon, not wanting to leave the place where she was expected. The servants agreed that no one would dare to impersonate the emperor. This was treason, and those who remained silent were to be punished as much as those who impersonated the emperor. Aris, perplexed, could not understand who could pretend to be the emperor, but everyone had to treat his love with caution, because such things undermine trust. The lady noticed that they would soon see the boots and said that they had to go. She asked the knight to take her, and she was already preparing for the unknown journey. Aris wished her luck on her journey. The lady, realizing the seriousness of the situation, noticed that they were going the wrong way. She felt that something was wrong, but she could not figure out what it was. The knight confidently replied that they were going in the right direction, but soon they surrounded her with swords. Everything happened quickly, and the lady realized that her plan had been exposed. She didn't expect the knights to trap her so easily, but she remained calm. Their actions seemed too obvious to her, and she already guessed what was going on. The knights were surprised by her fortitude. They had heard that she was unwavering, but they did not expect her to react so calmly to a threat. It spoke of her confidence and determination. Noel decided she would not give in, and as before she was not afraid of the threat. She thought that they did not understand how dangerous the game was. She knew that she came from a barbaric country, and such threats were nothing new to her. But she was not going to just give up, even if she was in the most dangerous situation now. The situation became more tense. Noel realized that the valley of death awaited her, and that everything would not be as easy as they thought. She was ready to fight to the end. "I don't think you realize how serious your mistake is," Noel said with confidence. She felt the tension rising and was prepared for any consequences. In response to their threats, Noel took out a knife and tore off part of her skirt, showing her determination. She knew it could be risky, but she felt she had to act boldly. The knight informed His Highness that Madame Noel had been absent for more than an hour. The Emperor ordered Carlson to tell her in more detail. An hour ago, a letter from His Majesty was brought, and she went alone to meet him. It was strange, so later, she followed the lady and found the lady's horse tied up at the edge of the forest. He asked which part of the forest she was heading towards. The knight only pointed out the direction she was going. The Emperor ordered Lucas to prepare immediately, and he was immediately ready to accept his instructions without wasting time on thinking. His actions were quick and precise. The Emperor gave orders to take Freck with him, and they would set out in search of Akasis, determined to quickly and efficiently complete the important task that had been set before them. After they left the palace, they headed into the forest. Ivan noticed that the situation did not look like a normal hunting competition, which made him wary. Everything looked strange. Something unexpected must have happened, because the forest was silent. Suddenly, they saw Freck, and everyone began to wonder what could have happened and what awaited them. The man was very surprised when he saw Emperor Ivan himself. It was completely unexpected, and he tried to understand what exactly was happening at that moment. While the bodyguard was treating Freck, it turned out that Akasis had gone missing. They were tasked with finding her, which further complicated the situation and presented them with an important task. Ivan asked where exactly she could have disappeared. The guy replied that she could be found in this part of the forest, which gave them a new point to search for and further action. The servant informed the Emperor that he had a bad feeling. This feeling of anxiety and uncertainty was bothering him greatly, making him wary. Finally, they found her, but there were many dead knights in that place. The woman without any equipment was able to defeat a whole squad of soldiers in armor, which impressed everyone. Lucas was stunned by what he saw. He thought that such a thing was impossible. The lady simply smiled at the Emperor, not paying any special attention to it, as if it was a normal thing. The woman remarked that she had not expected him to come. The Emperor asked from whom she had learned to wield a sword, like that which sparked interest in her abilities and training. Noel replied that she had been taught by a man. The emperor was surprised and remarked that she should undergo training again to improve her skill and technique. Her arm was damaged due to improper use of techniques, which worried the emperor, who noted that this could become a serious problem for her in the future. Noel, not paying attention to the blood and what was happening around her, calmly continued to fight. She did not care, and she did not feel any regret for her actions. Everyone was annoyed that she remained calm and did not react to what was happening. She dealt with the mercenaries on her own without needing outside help. What she really feared was how he would look at her as he did at others. With disgust, this thought tormented her, and she feared his judgment. The emperor could not understand how she could show her legs to others. He felt that she needed protection and put his coat on her to hide her flaws. But none of his actions came from disgust or comfort, as one might think. His behavior was rather bold and decisive, reflecting his desire to protect her. The girl explained that she felt uncomfortable moving, so she did it. It was her way of coping with the situation, and she was again met with the same attitude. She admitted that when her life was in danger, she could not remain simple. At that moment, she felt relief, realizing that her actions were justified. The emperor said that he did not like it when she was harmed without his knowledge. However, if she was well, he would not interfere, although his concern did not go away. Ivan thought that it was indeed Noel. Her character and actions were as he remembered, and he realized with surprise that she remained the same. 3. The servant hoped that the emperor was wrong, and that such situations would not happen again. He looked for a way to prevent further consequences and minimize the risks. 3. He would not let this matter go unnoticed today. Someone had dared to attack Assassins right under his nose, and he was not going to let it go unpunished. 3. The girl turned to the emperor, saying that this had happened because of her. She asked him to let her deal with the situation herself, so that all the problems would be solved on her terms. 3. The emperor replied that her problems were now his problems. However, being the emperor, he promised to punish everyone who dared to leave a sword on his woman in his country. 3. The lady replied that she should not be like that. The emperor could not understand what she was talking about, and this only increased his bewilderment at her words. 3. Noel was angry too, but at the moment there was no clear evidence to blame those responsible for what was happening. Everything was too confusing. 3. Just recently, they said that they would start building a water channel. This incident should not interfere with the national project, which was important for the whole country. 3. If they made a mistake, the nobles who had rallied around the family might strike back. This was a serious warning that had to be heeded. 3. The right moment had to be waited for to take revenge on the family. Noel was sure that this event should not be connected with her in any way, so as not to complicate the situation. 3. She did not want the emperor to be known in history as a tyrant, so she asked him to entrust the decision of this matter to her. This was her wish, and she hoped for his understanding. However, she remained unharmed. The emperor noticed that something was wrong, and she was clearly not in perfect order, which worried him the most. Instead of continuing the conversation, she had a request. The emperor was surprised and asked again, trying to understand what she meant. The girl began to imagine how Aris would be kneeling before her, asking for forgiveness. This image in her head made her smile, but it was no less disturbing. They said goodbye, and the emperor remembered how she asked him for the dagger in the carriage. It was a strange and interesting moment that he remembered. Since she had a sword pointed at her, she had to respond correctly too. This was her way of defending herself, and she knew she had to act decisively. The emperor agreed, but now he thought that she was clearly like her father. Her actions and thinking were logical, which confirmed her upbringing and character. She knew who to worship and who to avoid, and she always acted in accordance with these principles, which spoke of her clear understanding of the world. Although she told him to wait, he knew he had to warn them. It was important to not miss the chance to intervene in time. When they arrived at the scene, Aran informed the emperor that Assassins had instructed him to cover up the matter. This was new information that made the task more difficult. The emperor grabbed a spear and threw it at the man. He did not understand what was happening, but was ready to listen to his instructions and understand the situation. The gentleman said that one must know when to stop and that there would be no second chance. He gave a clear warning that the boy remembered promising not to make any more mistakes. He told Cain this, and the boy promised he would remember this lesson. It was an important reminder for anyone who dealt with the Emperor. At the feast, Noel pulled out a dagger. Aris was very frightened by this gesture, realizing that the situation had seriously escalated and everything could end unpleasantly. The girl started asking what she was doing. Noel put her on her knees, clearly showing who was in charge and that she was ready to act decisively. She noted that Aris didn't seem to know how skilled the barbarian woman was with a knife. This was important to understand how dangerous she could be. Aris, realizing her mistake, began to beg for mercy. She was ready to admit her guilt, hoping that her life would be spared. Noel was surprised that Aris realized what she had done wrong. It showed that she was capable of taking responsibility for her actions. Aris said in a trembling voice that she had done everything right and asked Noel to put the knife away. She hoped that everything would end peacefully without further complications. Noel remarked that she thought she could kill her using mercenaries. Aris denied this, claiming that there had been a mistake and that she was not involved. Noel asked her to listen carefully. If Aris wanted to kill her, she should take the sword and finish the job, but if not, it was better not to try. She warned that if Aris tried to do anything again, it would not go without consequences. Every action she took would be strictly assessed. She allowed the tea party to continue, deciding that it was time to stop there. Then she left the room, leaving everyone in the shadow of uncertainty. The knight asked the lady if everything was okay. Noel replied that she was fine. She was just a little tired, but there were no serious consequences. The maid informed her that she had a bath ready for her. Noel thanked her, relieved that she would be able to rest a little after everything she had been through. She sank into the water, trying to relax. It seemed that the smell of blood no longer haunted her, and she could calm down a little after the events she had experienced. Her skin became red, and she decided to go out as it had been about an hour. This was necessary to tidy herself up and freshen up. She asked the maid to bring her a dress, but no one answered her, which surprised her, as she did not expect her request to be ignored. At that moment, the Emperor came out of the darkness. Noel, seeing him, screamed and asked what he was doing here, not expecting him to appear in this place. The Emperor said that she herself had asked for the dress to be brought. This was his explanation, but it did not satisfy her, and she could not understand why he had come. Noel asked if he really came here only for that reason. The gentleman replied that, of course, not that his visit had a completely different purpose. Inquiring, she asked why he had come. The Emperor asked in surprise whether she really did not understand the reasons for his actions. He picked her up and carried her into the room. Noel thought that he had finished the hunting competition and could now devote his attention to more personal matters. The Emperor said that he was almost done with the competition. Noel asked who had won, trying to find out the details of the event that had just ended and the outcome of the hunt. Ethan asked her what she thought. He suggested that perhaps he was the one who had won, poking fun at her expectations and cryptic hints. Noel asked if he was hurt. The Emperor replied that she should have asked her, since she was the one in danger. When he pulled her dress down a little to examine her wounds, she became very embarrassed. It was an unpleasant moment that made her feel awkward. He wanted to make sure she was okay. That was his concern, and he wanted to make sure she was not hurt by checking her condition with his own eyes. He noticed the bruise and kissed it. It was his way of showing concern and affection, although she couldn't understand why he did it. Noel said it was just a light blow, and she had some other scratches. She tried to minimize the significance of what happened so as not to worry him. She also had injuries on her legs, and she felt embarrassed when he kissed her wounds. It was awkward for her and made her feel uncomfortable. The Emperor told her to relax and not to worry. He asked if she had expected anything different, which made her feel confused and embarrassed. He began to kiss her with passion, and the girl could not hold back her heavy breaths. Her body reacted to his touches. Each of his touches seemed to penetrate her soul. The Emperor, seeing her confusion, asked her not to allow anyone but him to leave marks on her body, protecting her from strangers' touches. Only he could leave marks on her skin. Every touch had to be special. But despite his desire, she asked him to stop. The gentleman was delighted by her complex nature and said that she was incredible after which they kissed again, as if for a moment forgetting about everything around them. He turned to her, offering her a choice: stop or continue. It was difficult to understand what she was choosing, but her eyes said more than words. There was passion in her gaze, and her body radiated hot waves of excitement, not hiding its desire. Each of her movements was filled with strength and readiness. He could achieve everything with one word: the strict and majestic emperor of Kairos. With his authority, he could overcome any obstacle, but only with her consent. Knowing that he was waiting for her answer changed her mood. The anger and thirst for revenge were gone, replaced by new feelings. She told him to continue. She let him do whatever he wanted with her, so he carefully laid her down on the bed, feeling her surrender to this moment. The gentleman began to undress. His words were firm. Now she will not be able to escape everything that happens. She must experience here with him. Noel covered her body with her arms, trying to protect herself, but he asked her in a soft, insistent tone to look at him without looking away. The girl felt that it was unfair because she could not afford anything, did not understand what was happening, and had no control over the situation. She felt as if she was losing this fight, but the emperor noted that it was not yet clear who was actually losing. He too is limited in his actions. He cannot allow himself everything he wants. He took her hand and placed it on his chest, feeling her heart. He had never been so vulnerable, and now, for the last time, he asked her permission to continue waiting for her clear answer. His Majesty pronounced her name without leaving any room for doubt. The sound of the word was filled with respect and attention. She explained that, in Tortilla, when people of the opposite sex call each other by name, it means they have become lovers. She wondered why he addressed her by name every time. It was always new to her, unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. It wasn't that she didn't like it, but the very thought of him calling her by name somehow stirred her feelings, creating a new response. She tried to resist, tried to push him away, but in the end it was useless. Her strength was on his side at that moment. This was her man, her emperor, her lover, and there was no doubt about it. She was ready to acknowledge his power and her affection. In the morning, she woke up and noticed that His Majesty was not around. She thought that he had already left, and only the silence around her spoke of this. Her back ached from the awkward position, and she wondered if he had done his business and left her once his desire had been satisfied. The maid came to see if the mistress was awake. She had fresh flowers in her hands, which she brought to dispel her thoughts. Noel said that she could come in now. The maid and Saratov entered, with bouquets preparing to deliver a message from His Majesty. Sarah, greeting her mistress, said that these flowers were for the Akasis from His Majesty, who already knew her preferences better than anyone. He remembered all her little whims and eccentricities, better than anything that seemed important to her, even more thoroughly than decorative ornaments. Sarah congratulated her mistress on her first wedding night spent with His Majesty, expressing her best wishes for this new stage of life. The girl couldn't understand how exactly they found out about her secret, because she was sure that she did everything right to hide it. Doubts tormented her, unable to understand the situation. Sarah quickly noticed that her mistress was not stupid enough to not realize what kind of nights she spent with His Majesty. It was obvious to everyone around her, but not everyone discussed it openly. The lady felt a little embarrassed, and her cheeks flushed with awkwardness. The palace was full of life, where bustle and passion reigned, especially in those places where future heirs could be born. Noel thought that all these rumors meant one thing. The palace was engulfed in this question because its inhabitants were very concerned about her relationship with the emperor, which became obvious even from their attention. Since she first heard about it from the headmaid, it confirmed that rumors were indeed spreading. Everything fell into place, and she realized how noticeable she was here. But fortunately, this information did not go beyond her palace, and she could be sure that her entourage was chosen correctly. This gave her some peace in this tense situation. That's why she decided that she would be grateful to her loyal servants for their support and keeping secrets. She understood that their loyalty was the most important thing for her at the moment. The mistress asked Sarah to get down to business. She was not naive enough to think that the maid had come here just like that, without a reason, and without a hidden intention that she was ready to reveal. The maid explained that from the moment she appeared in the Imperial palace, not only the emperor, but everyone around her had attracted attention. She became the object of interest of all the courtiers. As a stranger from the northern lands, she attracted curiosity, and her status as a princess only added to the mystery. Everyone around her wanted to know more about her, and this created additional pressure. Moreover, she was able to win the heart of the emperor, which no one else had managed to do. This fact only increased the attention to her and caused respect and sometimes envy among the courtiers. In such circumstances, it was impossible to remain in the shadows. She realized that her every move was under surveillance, and she could not help but notice the growing attention to everything she did. The mistress thought that Sarah wanted to emphasize yesterday's events, and the maid confirmed her thoughts. However, there was nothing surprising in this. The situation was more than expected. But the way the emperor was confused, and despite this, quickly dealt with the situation, confirmed that His Majesty was still paying attention to her every step. It is an undeniable fact that Akasis had to learn to protect herself because the palace was full of dangers. She could not rely only on others, especially in such moments. Sierra, the maid, boldly expressed the idea that even the emperor could not protect her from all possible threats. He was strong, but even his influence was limited. To protect herself, she must be strong enough. In the example of Akasis, Molb, the maid showed that only personal strength can guarantee safety in such a cruel environment. Noel pointed out that Sierra was right, but she couldn't help but admit that it would be a difficult task for her. After all, she came from far away and had to learn everything from scratch. She felt like she had more to say. Sarah clearly hadn't finished her thought, and there might be more important details to hear. The maid added that there was one way to increase her power: to become Caroline the Empress. It was not just a proposal, but a vital step for her survival in the palace. Caroline was the emperor's legal wife, the Empress, and this status gave her special protection that other women in the palace did not have. It was the surest path to safety. When the emperor tried to convince her, she rejected him, citing revenge. However, now her decision had changed, and another reason made her think about it. The sword that was held over her and her image as a monster were a terrible reality. Every day her life was under threat, and it gave her no peace. Everyone who looked at her was looking for weakness, and there were too many enemies. She understood that only a strong position could help her survive in this cruel world. Clenching her fists, the girl decided that if she became queen, even the emperor would not be able to protect her. She realized that in order to survive, she needed to become strong. She said she had no intention of becoming empress. She said that for the Akasis, like everyone else, the palace had two limited means of survival: becoming an empress, giving birth to a prince, and then securing her status as crown princess and future empress was the only path Sierra could offer for her survival. This was the last piece of advice she could give to the lady so that she could feel safe. Only through power and protection could she ensure her future. The lady asked Sarah to wait and ask why she was doing her such a favor. The question was important, and she could not help but ask it. Sarah asked again if there was a reason for this. The lady remembered that she had always heard about the strict laws of the palace and knew that she did not interfere in the fights between the Akasis. However, from the very beginning, Sarah showed her kindness, and this could not but raise questions. The lady did not understand what was behind this attitude. Sarah replied that there is no good in the world without a reason, and bowed. The lady remained perplexed, not knowing what exactly was hidden behind her words and actions. The men began to whisper that the emperor had also visited the palace of Akasis Noel the day before. This was strange because everyone knew how carefully her secrets were guarded. Lucas noticed that the emperor seemed to be in a good mood that day, but no one knew exactly what was the reason for such behavior. The emperor asked again if everything was as he had been told, and his servant Aaron confirmed it. The situation was under control, and everything was going according to plan. Now the emperor could rest a little, although Ethan remained in thought, wondering if Noel liked his actions and what consequences this visit would have. Ethan also wanted to find out what happened to Ivan, as there was no news about him. He continued to worry about the fate of this important person. The servant, wanting to talk about it, said that Ivan had probably returned to the capital, but his whereabouts were unknown. He could be somewhere in the area. At that moment, the first prince, Ivan Apolius Kairos, entered the office. His appearance was unexpected, and everyone present took notice of his arrival. He reported that he had carried out the emperor's orders and returned to the palace as duty required. This was an important message that was expected at the palace. Ivan, returning, understood that he had much to tell his emperor. Even being in the palace, he was absorbed in work and duties. The general, noticing his arrival, said he thought so. He offered a detailed report on the current situation in the northern region, which required special attention. Sarah then reminded me again that there is no good in the world without a reason, but the lady could not understand what exactly she meant. Everything remained a mystery. They had not met before, and the maid was delighted to finally meet her mistress. She invited her to see something amazing. She asked her to look where it was so beautiful. Noel agreed that it was indeed worth looking at, like a painting. Noel agreed that it was worth going outside the palace to see the beauty around her. However, she knew she had her limitations. Noel thought about it, but her maid quickly pointed out that of course she couldn't leave the palace. It was impossible according to the rules. At that moment, a man appeared behind her and said that if she really wanted to, she could go. This was an unexpected offer for her. He explained that there was no reason why she could not leave the palace. It was a curious remark that made her think. The lady turned around, hearing footsteps behind her, and asked who was standing behind her. It was the first prince of Kairos, Ivan Apolius Kairos, and his appearance surprised her somewhat. Ivan greeted the lady with the utmost respect, emphasizing her status as a worthy representative of this country, showing respect for her high position. She, without showing any particular surprise, simply extended her hand, to which Ivan kissed it, observing all the accepted rules of etiquette and respecting her personal space. Ivan noticed that she remained the same as before, while the lady did not understand what he was talking about, not seeing the changes that he would like to note. Ivan said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The lady did not understand why he emphasized the length of their separation and asked him to be more careful in his words so as not to offend her. He, breaking the distance, called her by name, which caused a sharp reaction from the lady. She ordered him not to pronounce her name again without permission, demanding respect for her customs. It reminded her of the time when the emperor also called her by her first name, something that only lovers could do in her native culture, which added to her feeling of awkwardness. Ivan believed that he had the right to call her simply Ria, which frightened the lady since she did not allow such close treatment, not approving of his habit. He said that she had become even more beautiful, to which the girl, holding back her emotions, asked him not to call her that anymore, because it seemed unnecessary and inappropriate to her. For Ivan, Ries sounded too long, but despite her request, he still did not allow himself to call her anything else, which irritated the lady. He continued to insist that he call her Ria. The lady, trying to remain calm, replied that he could do as he saw fit, but she did not approve of such address. He felt that she had agreed, and ignoring her doubt, he bid her farewell joyfully, but he knew that her feelings were still unclear. Noel, turning to Ivan, reminded him that she was now an Akasis, a representative of the emperor, and that he was now a brother and subject of his majesty, and her patience was exhausted. She could no longer tolerate his disrespectful manners, and declared that this would not continue. Ivan was shocked and promised that such antics would only be temporary, but the lady, remaining adamant, told him that he should get out of her way and not interfere with her anymore, to which Ivan only bowed, not knowing how else to react. Ivan was at a loss, not knowing what to say, and yet bowing low, he said that they would definitely meet again, hoping for the possibility of changing her attitude. He noticed that her severity knew no bounds, wondering how unyielding she was, which confirmed her firmness in decisions and dislike of his manners. Noel, meanwhile, was wondering if it was possible that His Highness had actually called her, and was greatly shocked when she saw him not expecting to meet him in such a context. The lady asked curiously what was going on, to which the emperor replied that he had simply invited her to come in and look at the documents without revealing all the details of the situation. There were files on the table about Tortilla, including data on her arrival in Kairos. Noel felt that her participation in this case could be important for further actions. The emperor noted that the information could not be obtained except by going there in person and studying all the details. He also asked who exactly did this, assuming that he knew one person. Noel, asking again what he meant by love, immediately understood that the emperor could suspect her of jealousy, which surprised her greatly since she did not experience such feelings. She didn't understand what jealousy there could be, because those who had sworn allegiance to the emperor were General Lucas and Sir Aaron. It was unexpected for her that there was someone else. The emperor said that his words were not a joke, and assured that the people dearest and closest to him were his brother, who had never disappointed him with his devotion and loyalty. Ivan Kairos, the emperor's brother, was his support and support. The emperor had confidence in him, believing that he was always honest and never let him down in the most difficult situations. Remembering her father's words, that Emperor George's actions always had their own motives, she thought that the general should be prepared for anything, but in her heart, she still believed in her brother. The emperor noticed how attentively she listened to him and asked why she looked like that. She suspected that there were errors in the documents, but decided not to tell him about her doubts. She wondered if the emperor's trust in his brother was excessive, considering that her father had been devoted to his brother as well. She wondered if he was too naive in his expectations. She couldn't know what his brother was really thinking, and she wondered if she should reveal her thoughts. Perhaps she shouldn't interfere with this family history and its secrets. In the end, she decided that it was none of her business, and simply said that nothing of the sort was happening. She did not wish to delve into these matters, leaving them to the emperor's conscience. However, she noted that she wondered if he had really invited her to look at the documents. It all seemed too complicated, and she couldn't help but wonder. The night had been full of anticipation, and she thought the emperor might have other plans, but perhaps his intentions were really related to the documents, and she did not know what to think. The emperor, approaching her, suddenly grabbed her in his arms, saying that perhaps this was the reason for her visit. He decided that she deserved a little attention and care. He carried her to his room and remarked that he was interested in how she would like the gifts this time, hoping that they would leave a pleasant impression and be received with joy. The lady smelled the roses, and her face flushed with embarrassment. She was touched by his attention, but at the same time she felt awkward because of such obvious signs of attention. The emperor smiled and said that he would stop there. However, it seemed that this time she really liked the gifts and did not hide her pleasure. The lady, despite her embarrassment, noticed that there were too many roses, and the palace was filled with their fragrance. Everything around seemed to be engulfed by this smell, which barely left room to breathe. The gentleman, noticing the smell coming from her body, said that it was probably the same aroma that surrounded her. This confirmed that her attention was completely on his gestures. He asked if her body was okay, but the lady replied that she did not care about the pain. She was always ready to take responsibility for her decisions, despite the inconveniences that arose. She understood well that all the consequences of her decisions lay on her conscience, and holding back her emotions, she asked again what he was talking about, trying to understand the true motives of his questions. Ethan said that she would soon discover a new world that he said would be unlike anything she had experienced before, promising her incredible sensations and experiences. The emperor asked again if he had woken her. The lady replied that he had not. She had not yet woken up, which meant that she could sleep a little longer if she wished. He added that if she wanted to continue to rest, she could close her eyes and go back to sleep. Noel, however, reported that she found it difficult to breathe when he was on top of her. She noticed that she woke up early at dawn. She was interested in what the emperor usually did at this time. She wanted to know what he did every morning, while the rest of the world was still asleep. The emperor said that he usually practices fencing in the morning. If Lucas is already awake, they fight each other, practicing their martial arts skills. She said that she would like to watch these trainings too, especially the battle between the emperor and General Lucas. She would love to see them fight. She also admitted that she had never seen the emperor hold a sword in his hands. She had never witnessed his martial arts, and that was what really interested her. The emperor is said to be the best swordsman. He himself remarked that he would also like to see how she holds a sword, to see how she would cope with such a weapon. She asked again in surprise if he was joking. The lady laughed, but her eyes sparkled with genuine interest. It was unexpected, and she herself did not know what she was really thinking. Then she remembered how she had once held a dagger in her hands. This experience was important to her, and it was connected to the memory of her past trials that she could not forget. The lady asked the emperor why he had not inquired about what had happened that day. It was an important moment for her, and she was curious why he had not yet brought it up. The emperor, clearly not understanding what she was talking about, asked her why she had suddenly come up with such an idea. Regardless of the reason, she remained loyal and devoted to him, but she was still curious. She noticed that the rumors about her, although scary, were greatly exaggerated. Bad stories are always distorted, but she always believed that the situation itself was worse than its descriptions. She said that they tried to kill her, and that was almost the same as murder. There was no need to talk about it in so many words, because she had been through a lot, and it was hard to argue with that. The emperor reminded her that it was he who had ordered that the wound not be left on the body. She obediently followed his instructions as always, but that did not mean that she was completely calm about it. The gentleman could not understand what else he needed to ask his woman. He felt that everything had been said in their conversation, and he did not know what else to answer her. Noel hugged him, smiling. She remembered her father's words when he first gave her a sword. It was a moment that would always remain in her heart and define her attitude towards weapons. Her father had told her that a sword, like any weapon, could take someone's life. She had to handle it carefully, keeping in mind the consequences of each blow. He was always on the front lines of war and claimed that killing brought remorse. These words remained in her memory as an important lesson from the one who was her mentor and hero. If the moment came when she had to kill, she would think twice. Finding a way to solve a problem without violence was a vital part of her upbringing and her philosophy of life. He didn't want to put such a burden on her, but she couldn't follow all his instructions, no matter how hard she tried. These thoughts did not give her peace because she was herself. In reality, it was all just self-preservation. She acted not out of malice, but out of necessity, protecting herself and those dear to her. Noel savored the moment of holding a sword in her hands for the first time in a long time. It was a strange feeling, but it gave her a sense of power and control that she hadn't had in a long time. In Tortilla, she had to use the sword in extremely stressful situations. But even in those moments, when she had to defend herself, this feeling gave her confidence. As she swung her sword, she felt her mind losing its clarity, and she was afraid that it would be visible to others. It was a strange feeling, and she was not sure how it would be received. The emperor thought that she was not too dependent on the looks of others. She was a strong woman, but she felt insecure, and he noticed this despite her confidence. She replied that it was not so. What scared her most was that the emperor, having seen her dark side, would start to look at her differently, that he might change his attitude towards her. The gentleman said confidently that this would not happen. She was a cacice, the daughter of the god of war. Her red hair resembled a sunset, and her eyes were like rubies, unusual and beautiful. Noel Ridus, with eyes redder than rubies. She couldn't be a monster, and if anyone was wrong, it was him, because he couldn't protect her at the right moment, and she was forced to act. The lady asked him about it, but the emperor said that this place was often the site of assassination attempts on emperors and their descendants. It was hard to survive here, and they knew that it was so. To survive, one had to be willing to take up the sword. The emperor assured her that this was not her fault, and that he never blamed her for these actions. She was forced to act this way because there was no other choice in this place. This lesson was painful, but reality dictated its own terms. He hugged her tighter, confirming his words. He did not blame her, and was ready to support her in any difficult situations, no matter how they unfolded. The lady continued to train in fencing with the knight, honing her skills. She was determined and self-confident, and this helped her to achieve success. She won another duel. She noticed that her eyes were not mistaken. Sierra's sword was straightforward and honest, and its owner was also a strong fighter. Akasis had won, and the maid was delighted. It had been an impressive battle, and she could not hide her delight at the skill she had seen. She watched with interest as the emperor and Lucas trained. He was lucky to have the chance to see the emperor's swordsmanship in action. The lady was surprised when she saw that the general had arrived. Ivan informed her that he was also present, and this was a moment that could not leave her indifferent. So she greeted His Highness. It was important to her, and she showed politeness and respect as always in such situations. Lucas had been asking the prince to fight him for a long time, but now he changed his mind. He wanted Akasis to be his opponent, as he considered him the strongest. Noel noticed that she was no match for the general. She had not held a sword in years, and her skills were not up to the task of defeating such an experienced fighter. The gentleman reassured her that there was no need to say that he just wanted to have some fun and enjoy the moment with her without expecting a serious fight. Noel agreed that it would be next time Yvonne watched this feeling, how their relationship became more and more warm and trusting. The lady hadn't really picked up a sword for a long time, and she was a little ashamed of her skills. She felt that she needed to work hard to be worthy. She decided that once she had honed her skills, she would ask the general to fight her herself. He noticed her determination and suggested that they fight next time. The lady didn't mind. She said that if they were to fight, they would have to make room for his duel so that everything would be done properly. Yvonne asked about fighting him. He was willing to offer himself to evaluate her skills and see how much she had improved during this time. He said that he was probably the best person for the task because he could help her assess how well she had mastered the sword and how ready she was for the challenge. Noel was surprised and asked what he meant. Then Yvonne noticed that she seemed worried and afraid that she would not be able to win the upcoming fight. Yvonne added that everyone has such doubts, and Noel, it seems, does not even understand why he speaks such a strange and unusual language for her, like the language of tortilla. Noel asked him, puzzled, if he didn't think that, because he had spent just one day near the war in the north, he was now ready for any test and did not value his life. Yvonne calmly noted that such experiences were normal, and so the lady pointed out to him the need to remain silent and draw his sword to begin training. The gentleman said that he seemed to be reminiscing about old times and called her Ria again, as he had in the past, which did not go unnoticed and surprised Noel. Noel smiled and told him not to try to cheer her up. She tried her best, but despite her best efforts, she couldn't beat him in this fight. Yvonne said that anger creates a gap in her defenses, and she needs to be careful and vigilant because emotions can weaken her at the most critical moment. She, of course, did not forget the words of her mentor, who warned her about the importance of controlling her feelings so as not to become vulnerable in battle. That same day at Lady Suah's, the lady began to suspect that something was wrong with Noel. Her behavior and mood were clearly not in order, which caused concern. The lady asked again what was going on, and Suah, having carefully examined her, noticed that the girl's face clearly showed signs of a bad mood, which could not go unnoticed. Noel said that nothing like that happened, but Suah added that the girl kept dropping things and her face turned pale, which was really alarming. Noel explained that her mood is not that bad. It's just that one person is causing her unpleasant feelings that she can't hide. The lady was surprised by her words, but Noel confirmed that despite everything he does, she simply does not want to see him anymore and does not want to communicate with him. Suah thought that it was probably related to Aris's acasis, but the lady quickly dismissed this idea, saying that the reasons for her dissatisfaction lay elsewhere. She added that it was a different person, selfish and cowardly, and it was the one who had greatly disappointed her by causing such strong emotions. The woman noted that if she really thought so, then the reasons for this must be very compelling, and she probably had her own explanations for it. However, Suah advised against showing her emotions so openly, as it could be dangerous and could affect her attitude towards other people. The lady asked her what she meant, and Suah explained that she was one of those people whose emotions were easily read on her face, and this could be her weak point. Suah expressed concern that this could harm her in the future, especially in situations where she needs to remain calm and not show her feelings outwardly. Noel said that despite this, she tries to control her emotions so as not to show them too clearly in her communication with this person with whom she has a tense relationship. The lady thought that she should become as calm and balanced as Lady Suah so as not to let her emotions influence her behavior. The lady said that she was quite calm at the moment, but Noel disagreed and felt that she was actually much more nervous than she would like to be. Incidentally, the towel she was currently wearing was made by Heather, and Noel noticed it right away because the fabric was really high quality. Noel added that she immediately noticed Heather's signature work and agreed that it was indeed her style, as the fabric was very nice and high quality. It was her favorite fabric. Heather really put a lot of effort into making this towel, and it was just like her to always try to do everything to the highest standard. The soft fabric that was so popular in Cararos's social circles was known for its unusual texture. Noel had heard that its production was an art and a labor-intensive process. She had a few rolls of the fabric herself too, so she could pick out her favorite color to make something similar for herself if she wanted. However, Noel refused, saying that there were already dozens of rolls of silk in the warehouse, and she did not need more, especially since the choice was already too large. Suah assumed that these fabrics were a gift from Her Majesty, and the lady confirmed her guess, explaining that it was indeed a gift from the king. Noel was a little embarrassed, and when Suah asked, she said that everything was fine, although it was clear from her reaction that she had not asked the king about what kind of relationship they had. Noel confirmed that she doesn't really care what people think about her relationship with the king, because for her, it's not the most important thing in life. She admitted that she might have her reasons for doing this, and that you can't always get what you want, even if you really want it. Noel would be lying if she said she wasn't curious, but at the same time, she knew that her relationship with this man was far more important to her than any rumors. She noted that if everything were the way she wanted, she would hardly feel the way she does now, when everything around seems tense and difficult. She remembered how she fought with Ivan, how hard she tried to defeat him, but he turned out to be much stronger and was able to win despite her efforts. He defeated her, and the father noted with surprise that this guy really knows how to fight, and the victory over his daughter was not an accident. This boy, who easily defeated his daughter, was a man who could have become a great warrior, but his name remained unknown to many. Jade thought that perhaps he would like to become his disciple, as this young man had unique abilities and prospects for the future. Being the only disciple of the god of war, Jade noticed that the boy was surprised by such an opportunity because he never even dreamed of becoming a disciple of such a great master. Memories of the past often pop into his mind when he sees it, and it causes strong feelings that never go away, reminding him of that time. These feelings were her first love, and it was Ivan Apolius Kairos, whose name became an integral part of her life and heart despite everything that happened. Suah. I try to make her come anytime. Next time she will prepare her favorite tea. Noel agreed and said that she had a very interesting time with her today. But then Swak noticed that her mother had come to visit her. She did not understand why she was there. Noel greeted the lady and remarked that she was glad to meet her. The lady also greeted the cassis and said that she had heard that her daughter owed a lot to her. Noel flew up that she owed her a lot. Suah always listened to her complaints. Suah turned to her mother and said that it was rude, but her mother said that it was okay. The girl believed that nevertheless, her mother was wrong. Noel was noticed, because if it were not for her, she would be very lonely, so she is very glad that she has a good friend. The Duchess said that after this, when her daughter began to speak, she lost her smile, but at some point she began to smile again. She means that it happened after meeting Akasis Noel. The girl said that her mother's words were true. Mother didn't tell anyone, but she worries day and night, so that she doesn't suffer anymore. Noel noted that it was difficult for her, but the woman said that she could only thank Akasis Noel. The Duchess said she would certainly repay her favor. The lady said it was not necessary because it was not a favor at all. She says you told me that this means they will always protect Mrs. Noel. The Celtics promised to protect her, and the lady assured her that in the future, a situation would definitely arise when they would be able to show their help and support her at the right moment. At that moment, she asked Noel to always remember their family, as their support would be invaluable in any circumstances when she needed help. As long as the Celtic family exists, Akasis Noel will never be alone in Kairos. Her family will always be there ready to help at any time. Noel replied that it was not worth exaggerating so much, and that she did not need to pay for such favors. She believed that the Duchess did it more out of duty than real need. However, it would be extremely impolite and rude to refuse the Duchess her favor and not accept her offer, as this could lead to discontent. Noel remembered the words that the Celts would always be with her. These words left a feeling of confidence in her heart that she would not be alone no matter what. The servant, turning to Ivan, noted that he was apparently in a very good mood today, but the master replied that this was not so, which caused the servant to panic a little. It was obvious that General Lucas was serious in his intentions. Aaron, standing next to him, greeted His Highness, expressing respect for the high military command. He then turned to the general to greet him as well, showing respect for his superior and maintaining an atmosphere of mutual respect. The servant was surprised and noted that despite Lucas's high status as a general, he still had to respect the imperial family, especially in such official situations. The prince, reassuring the servant, said that everything was fine and that he should not worry because his relationship with General Lucas was at a high level of mutual understanding. Ivan was on his way to see His Majesty the Emperor when Lucas, addressing him, mentioned that he had heard about the recent fight with the Casus Noel, which piqued his interest. He wondered if it was possible that they had met her before, as it was surprising how clearly and harmoniously they repelled attacks in battle, demonstrating a high level of skill. Lucas became angry, declaring that he was only telling the truth and did not understand why his remarks could be taken with doubt. He was confident in his observation. Those who saw them in battle immediately realized that they had fought together many times. And what is important, they were not just training partners, but were close as the emperor's only beloved. The first prince's servant, hearing such words, was stunned and asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about, not understanding what could have prompted the general to voice such revelations. Ivan asked Colin to calm down. He knows what is bothering the general and the assistant. Erin was sure that he didn't know what kind of attention she was getting in the palace, or what the situation was like now. In every place she passes, invisible eyes and ears focus on her. Not long ago, before His Majesty's eyes, there was even an attempt on her life. Provoked in broad daylight in the Imperial Palace, they forced her to clash swords with the first prince of Kairos. He does not know that this could put her and even the emperor himself in danger. They certainly do not know where the relationship between the two of them was when His Highness arrived in the north. Well, the eyes and ears of the Imperial Palace are open always and everywhere, even if they are not visible. Ivan said that it seemed he had made a mistake. He understood perfectly well what they were worried about. Erin told the prince that if his mood had worsened, he asked for forgiveness. The prince said that they were saying this out of loyalty to the emperor, so he had nothing to say. But it was time to go. His Majesty was calling him.